Boom. Sup, everybody? This is KARAK with ACG, and I'm here with Johnny and Silver for the best gaming podcast number 432?
431.
431. Damn it. 431. I was off by one. I feel like I'm not off by one. I feel like I'm actually right on what I just said, but who knows? We're going to talk, speaking of feeling like I'm right, it's been multiple years where I've bitched about the Game Awards, and I have seen tweets, I've seen DMs where people have posted and given me a picture of DMs of people mad at me not getting invited to podcasts because I went off on the Game Awards a couple years ago. I wake up this morning and those same jackasses are bitching about the Game Awards. And I'm like, welcome to paying attention, bitches. I just don't get why we let everything get so bad before, like, trying to fix it. Like, yesterday in particular was bad, but this has been a thing coming for years. For years. Right. I mean, pretty much since the first one. We're going to talk about Dorito Pope kind of thing, but it's like, it's always been a problem with the Game Awards. And I get why Jeff has issues with it, but it's definitely a discussion I want to have. Some weird shit going on there. I want to say thanks to everybody watching. Got a bunch of people who left the Patreon saying I don't do reviews anymore. I do reviews. I was playing 2 games. One was 80 hours. The other was 45 hours. Yeah. And during that time, I can't do other reviews. And I was doing a preview for Outcast. So I get why you left.
Just one guy.
Yeah, I get why you left, but I saw some more people who I saw somebody say, oh, you still do reviews when I did the Avatar one. It's like, dude, goddamn, man, this happens every time. Yeah. And I even say it occasionally. I don't know if you guys have noticed.
You'll never make everybody happy, sadly.
In the Patreon, I've jumped in with a schedule occasionally and said, like, this is what I've got planned. And it's still, I'm like, dude, if you pay attention, wouldn't you have seen that? I don't know, man. It sucks. Sucks because I don't want you guys to leave. I love you. Well, not all of you. A couple of you guys I don't love. Maybe like hard. I like some of you really hard. Like Big Mac. I like him hard.
Let's not try to fix it, Karak. It's getting worse. I'm not
trying to fix it. No, I'm making it worse on purpose, man. Sort of like last night's event. Trust me. This all has a theme. Take a shovel and dig, and then when you get to the bottom of the hole, blow it out with dynamite. People in the chat, Danowin Gamer, Dion78, Big Mac, who's hiding under the username JK Richardson, but we know you because of your avatar. Sailor Mercury, Johnny's hiding in there. SBZ, Wannabe Dev, Mr. Reza, Mark Smith, Batman, Accelerated Mango, just Batman. Batman's in there. It's not just Batman, but that's what I'm going with now, is that Batman's hanging out just like...
You picture him only with the mask, nothing here.
Cheetos in his chest hair because he's eating and watching the pot. Just underwear.
The couch.
But the underwear has the symbol, of course.
It has little bats.
Yeah, little bats. No, it's got the little bats. Yeah, just like the little... It's the kids' briefs
bats.
When you were like 8 that you would get.
Waiting for news on Suicide Squad.
Yeah, just sitting up waiting for news. Coyote says, I got depressed last night watching the awards. We'll talk about it. I wouldn't get depressed. Don't get depressed. I mean, we're getting award shows, and we're getting people coming, and we're getting some amazing announcements, but do be concerned or thoughtful of it. Let's see, what else? Gary Fighting D-Dog. Aries is in here. CK Gaming, Mr. Reza. I already mentioned him, so he got mentioned twice. It's the nicest thing I can ever do for you. Craig Jackson says, do you think Keighley should have lowered expectations about Elden Ring DLC? No, I think the Elden Ring devs did. They stated it pretty clearly it wouldn't be there. It is on my bingo card, which was certified by my group in the Discord that I did know these things prior. But some of them had to be under code names. Rob Brockett, $2 super chat. On time to the party this time. Sup, bitches. Sup?
Glad to have you, brother.
Speaking of that, let's jump in. What games have you been playing, Silver?
Up until Avatar came out, I had actually been playing quite a bit of Kingdom Come Deliverance.
No shit. Returns to the Mac, huh? That's interesting.
Yeah. It just kind of felt like it. Still fun game. It's also really nice to play a game that actually feels satisfying, or really satisfying, and kind of geared towards playing without the HUD and stuff on the hardcore difficulty, where you don't get to see your location on the map and stuff. Yeah. And really sort of evokes the same feeling I had back when I played Operation Flashpoint back in the day, which also removed your position on the map when you played the hardest difficulty, so you didn't really know where you were, and you had to use landmarks and stuff to sort of identify and navigate where you were and where you needed to go. And that was actually pretty decent preparation for Avatar's exploration mode, I found. But since its release, Avatar is what I've mainly been playing.
Yeah, Avatar sucked up more of my time. Johnny, did you do Avatar?
Yeah, I've been playing it today and last night for a few hours.
We'll get to that in a second, but I did want to ask you, Johnny, what have you been playing?
Outside of that, I've been playing the Cyberpunk 5.1 update. So they released like the Metro they've been talking about for a long time. A bunch of other smaller things, as well as new vehicles. Like I think there are 5-6 new motorbikes for people who wanted motorbikes. They're like more car chases and different things, more hangouts with, romantic bros or, whatever. So they added a bunch of stuff, and the game has been a lot of fun for me to jump back into. So I've been doing that.
Yeah, I've seen a bunch of people talking about it. I don't know what the Metro in the real one adds that the mod didn't. So that's actually what I'm interested in, is to see if there's overlaps between the mod for the Metro and the Metro official, to see if, because I don't remember if the mod makers use I'm assuming they did use the official stuff for the Metro. So that'll be
what's really cool is that some of the stations weren't fully, created. So they actually did that, and every station has its own flavor, and they have 3 different Metro lines, just like in normal Metro. You go in, you pick your line, and it shows you the map with different stops and things like that. When you're in the Metro, you can look out the window or stand by the door and look around, and it's mostly overground, so you see the city as you're traveling. It's all done with that in mind, in terms of being able to see the city, right? But you can't move freely in the Metro. So you choose when you get off. You can look out a window or the door, but you can't actually move freely. But there are people, they're doing stuff. So
I don't run the game. So it's not connected even to my hate. I want to make sure people realize that if this was a different game and what I'm about to say popped up in a different game, I would also bring this up. That is a very environmental building mechanic, the Metro. It is not needed or required in any way. And so adding it later, I personally would have loved to have seen them add in interactions in the more populous locations, more interactions there than the Metro. Because the Metro, if it had been day one, would have been great because it was one more environmental, I'm interacting with the game world. Now later, I have no issue with it being added. None. But it was like, oh, damn, there's still some things. There's many things I would still love to see done in the open world elements of Cyberpunk that unfortunately aren't.
I also it just feels a little odd as an addition to like the game's, I don't know, in the context of like the game's story, I guess, to me, where V has a car from the outset. And
true.
V's entire sort of drive is, I want to get to the top. I want to be somebody. But no, let me go ride the Metro rather than get into my flashy sports car or whatever it is, or status.
Dude,
marker.
You could be right. You could be right in that they worked on the Metro for a while and then felt that when they looked at how the game played out, they looked at the Metro, because if it's not done, if it wasn't fully done, that means they stopped early. It wasn't cut right at the end, because then those things would be built, but maybe the mechanic wasn't set. But here, if the geometry and stuff weren't set, that means that somebody was like, should we just cut the Metro? Blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, it's interesting. I like it as a thought process of like even Batman or Spider-Man
just as an option.
Just as an option. But it will get used almost zero by me at some point, because I'm just going to be fast traveling or what have you. It would be great if you had... Hang on. I just wanted to say it would be great if it had a difficulty maybe where you could say maybe only Metros and cars can be used, but fast travel can't. That might be sort of fun if you had a restriction there that was maybe in your save game difficulty or something. But what were you going to say?
No, sorry to cut you off. I agree with you. It's not really a great functional ad, and it also doesn't make that much sense from a story standpoint. So I agree with both of you guys. But where I come at it from, and I think many people, this is why people requested the Metro, is they love the city. I love the city, right? I love looking at the city. One of my favorite things in the game was being driven around by people and being able to look around. And so the idea, I like the metro because they've designed the lines with looking at the city in mind in a way. So you actually get to see stuff from different angles that you don't get to see when you're driving around, for example.
Yeah, I do know that the metro wasn't requested prior to them knowing it was cut, though. And when it was cut, a lot of people were like, who gives a shit? Because you're in a car and you can sightsee in a car and control where you go. So I get where you're coming from. It's sort of like almost like a beautiful sunset in Red Dead, you know, where you can be like, oh, this is cool. Because again, I don't actually have an issue with it being added at all. Like, it is interesting that it wasn't done and it was cut. And that to me sounds less like manpower. Well, it's always manpower, but it sounds a little bit like the director or whomever looked and said, you know what, this isn't really in the context of the game. It doesn't fully make sense, right? It doesn't. Or at least for us to use these resources on it. So they stopped it prior to it even being done. You know, instead of cutting it. But it could have also been a bug. It could have been something where the fast travel was causing bugs, and you know they were like with memory and with all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So yeah, it's cool that it got added. Like I said, it's just it is. Yeah, there's some things I would like to see to get me. 2.1 did a good 2.0. Sorry, did a good job with a lot of stuff, but there's still a lot. There's that level of combat and movement and fixing that they've done that is directly in contrast to the role-playing stuff I wanted. And I'm still in back of my head, no lie, guys, they say they're done. My brain's like, they can't be done. Man, we're going to get a role-playing 2.3 update. Like, it'll happen. I'll be holding on to that until we get Cyberpunk 2. That'll just be me. Or we get a Shadowrun, right? We get a Shadowrun, I'm going to be really happy. If it's a good one. 'Cause it could suck.
Well, you know, one small addition, by the way, was the Walkman, or like the portable radio, so you can listen to the radio outside of the car now, and it's pretty cool actually. It plays a little Walkman sound, like the old cassette Walkman, like when you press the button, it's like a big click, like when it starts playing the music. And sometimes it will stop when someone is talking or there is music from environment or missions and stuff, and then it comes back to play. So if you're riding the metro, you can be listening to, your favorite stations and stuff. I found that was a pretty cool touch, and I loved hearing the click.
It seems like a very tactile approach to it.
Was that cut prior to it being launched? Was that already somewhat planned, and then
I don't know. They said in the presentation that it was a highly requested feature to not stop the music when you leave the car, but I don't know if that was like, initially.
Yeah, and I firmly do not believe any developer, my favorite developer in the world is, I don't have one, but if I had a favorite developer in the world and they said the most requested, in no way, shape, or form would I ever believe them. Like that is quite literally the easiest get out of jail free card, is to look at all the stuff. It may be what you're saying is the most requested item we can add is. And they sort of curb the data they're giving out. By the way, I'm not saying they're lying. I'm just saying I don't believe that thing.
You can always say this was one of the most requested things, and there's no real way for us to scrutinize that.
And I've done it, by the way, about 3 months ago. So to tell you how easy it is to do, about 3 months ago, I was being requested by patrons to do something. And so I posted on Twitter. Did anybody call me out? No, because I'm the one who's usually bitching about this. But I posted it, and then the next day I woke up and read my post, and I was like, dude, you just did the one thing you never said you would do, which is the open-ended, people have been asking, because it's like, that's such an easy, people have been asking me, how you can help support the channel. Well, the best way is to buy my $50 shirt. It's like, is that the most requested, or do you just want to sell your shirts? It's a difficult, sort of road to plow down. Right. But regardless, they patched it up. They fixed a bunch of stuff. I mean, you got to celebrate it in the idea of, if you hold on to it too long, you're going to give yourself, either anal prolapse or some kind of cancer. You can't hold on to that hate forever, man. You got to move on. Yeah. And it's like, I have ire towards it and disappointment still, but it's like, you got to move on and look at it and just be like, all right, they patched it up. They sort of know what needs to be done for the next one, which we are getting. And so I'm very excited for that. I'm very excited for the next one. And I'm very excited for them to go to Unreal. I don't think people realize Unreal is probably the best part of this entire story, is that after their failures, after all their issues, they were very clear that the game they delivered was nothing like what they said. And one of the major reasons, this is spouted by the game director himself, was the way their engine handled splitting stories and how they were going to do that. And they decided not to do it at all, other than Maelstrom. There's one mission where, like, that's a big deal. But Unreal does allow that. And that's one of the reasons why they switched. And I'm excited, man. I'm really excited for Unreal. I think that's going to be great. I mean, imagine, like, having it, I don't know, matter more. Like, that's what I want. I think that'll be super. I'm super stoked for it.
I would be curious if there's some compromise there, because, you know, one of the cool things about Cyberpunk, if we put aside all the sort of lackluster stuff from the RPG standpoint, is that the gameplay flows into what would be cutscenes seamlessly. It's like, you know, you go into a conversation and you see a different perspective. It's all fluid. It's not like fade to black. We see that in Avatar a bit, right? Like the fade to black stuff where it cuts the flow. I really like that, how it just flows and now you're talking, you know. So I hope that can still happen in Unreal. I'm sure it can, but it's one of those things, you know, it's a different engine. So I don't know if.
Yeah, no, in all honesty, I believe that it probably can happen easier in Unreal just because we've seen it with a lot of Unreal games. So I think we'll be good. We've also seen stutter, though.
Yeah, I was about to say, they just need to be careful with the stuttering.
Yeah, like that's a big thing. Let's move on from there. Hero Business, $10 super chat. Thank you very much, Hero Business. I'll pin that one. Doesn't let me pin that one. Well, that's a pisser. I'm trying to pin you right now. I just wanted to pin that, but I can't. I appreciate super chat. SBZ, $5 super chat. Karak, our reverend fake trailers connoisseur. What do you think of Light No Fire reveal? Do you think it's real and possible, or Sean was BSing? Not only do I think it's real and possible, we've talked about this back when we were talking about a No Man's Sky update about 6 months ago, and I actually hired somebody to go back and basically take all of the podcasts, take all the text data, and put it in a database for me so I know when we've talked about stuff. I'm going to explain why not only do I think it's real, but you could see that it was real by a couple mistakes. I'm always looking at mistakes in trailers because I think that proves it's real far easier than, you know, even if it looks graphically close. It's like, I don't know about that, but there were some mistakes.
Because if you were faking it, you wouldn't bother to, like, put in errors.
It takes resources to fuck up, right, on purpose. If you're trying to fuck up on purpose, it takes some resource to be like, do this wrong. Jimmy 504, $2 super chat. Hey boys, thanks as always. Rick Gaffney, $5 super chat. Fellas, do you think Switch 2 will have the Xbox Game Pass app on the home screen? And that's how Microsoft can guarantee Call of Duty on there. You know, that's a good question, man.
I would say decidedly no, would be my guess, given what was it, like a couple of weeks ago, they went out, Spencer went out and said pretty unequivocally that Game Pass is not going to be on other platforms at all.
Yeah, I did say it the next day after the other guy hinted that it would be. Yeah, that's a little like the Elden Ring thing. So people were leaking the Elden Ring behind the scenes going, I think there's going to be a trailer. And then the developer, one of the main guys, was like, listen, people, it's a ways out and it's promising, but it's a ways out. And it's like that right there, if you speak developer, means no trailer. And you're just like, no, it's not. That's not what happened. I left it on my bingo card just in case because I thought, hey, maybe I'd win. But I didn't. That's it for the super chats. Black Myth looks to be shaping up good. Yes, it does. And for everybody who told me that I was a liar when I said it was real, sorry, peeps. It is real. And it probably has some of the best enemy design I've ever seen in a game. I will put my foot down on that. Yeah. I think Black Myth is mind-blowing when it comes to some of the enemy design for that kind of game. And we'll talk about that.
Yeah, and I love the creativity with the transformations and everything. Dude. Yeah. Did you see the one where you turned into a rock face guy and you're just blasting people with your face?
Yeah, and then also the one where he jumps on the back of some big creature. And he's like this big and the creature's flying through the sky. I'm like, oh shit, we're there. We're there for games. But before we jump into the Game Awards, I want to look at any of the other smaller bits of news and
by the way,
that we don't miss
before
those.
You do that, quick shout out. I bought a couple of your shirts. I'm rocking one of them today.
Oh, I didn't even see it.
Some really cool designs, man.
Thank you. Yeah, they're awesome. I really
appreciate, like, the back also has cool stuff on it, you know.
Yeah.
So it's like the
And it's
whole way
print
around.
all over, which is the reason why, unfortunately, they're a little bit more expensive. But I hate the big block text or a picture on a chest.
Right.
You look
Yeah.
like Superman or something. So it's
And
just
let
like
me tell you too, it's not like the normal just cotton,
Blend.
like basic bitch blend. It's like soft and stuff. So they're pretty high quality, I would say.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I saw you repping the rough game.
Yeah, rough game. I love the rough.
A lot of people don't know that joke unless they're in the Discord, but it's like whenever you hear me say rough, that is what I mean, like
Rough.
R-U-F-F. That means that game is in bad shape. Like, it's rough. I do want to talk a little bit about Outcast later. We'll talk a little bit about Rogue Trader. Let's actually discuss Avatar for a bit, then we'll jump in the game.
Yeah.
So you guys played it. So we'll let Silver go first. What you played it? You played it on the console, which is also important
Series
because
X,
people are asking. What so far have you taken from it?
I mean, visually, it's stunning in a lot of places. Like Pandora is honestly one of the most sort of spellbinding video game worlds that I've had the pleasure of exploring. Like especially at night when you get the bioluminescence.
Right.
It's just you constantly stop and go, kind of wow. And then you get on top of that, you get character movement that I did not expect. That really, to me, feels a lot like Mirror's Edge because it's all about momentum. You start sprinting through the woods, you jump up into the trees, you run along the branches, the vines, you jump back down again. You don't stop for anything. You just keep going and going and going. And
the sliding.
And especially when you combine them with these like mushrooms that emit these gas clouds that enhance your speed, you can get really get going. And it feels so satisfying to pull off and sprint around and move and use that system for combat and stuff. That is really rewarding. And that's where the game gets really phenomenal to me. There are like visually, it is, like I said, mostly gorgeous, but I will say the water on the Series X does not look great. It doesn't
look great reflective on the PC. And does
it's
it
way
ripple
too
fast?
reflective.
Silver? Does it ripple fast too?
Sometimes, yeah. If there's a storm, it does. But that's about all it does.
Okay.
You don't really see like wave
I see.
systems or anything like that. But the water is so reflective that it's basically just a mirror sheen constantly, which gets really distracting.
Yeah, almost like it's just liquid mercury kind of thing, like it's mercury or something instead of water.
And I mean that's not unusual in video games. That's pretty common, I would say. But it is in a game where that is so visually sumptuous and so visually gorgeous. That sort of difference, that contrast, does stand out all the more.
Okay.
Unfortunately, but still, I mean, the moment you get your ikran and you're able to fly, it's a triumph in this game. Like it's phenomenal, and it's so much fun to sort of sip through, to barrel roll, to do all those maneuvers, and then couple that with the movement on the ground, which was already fun. And you start getting a lot of options that feel really amazing and fun to engage with and to play with. Like the crafting system, I really like.
I figured you would when I played it.
It's one of the best I've seen in an open world game, because finally I don't have to collect 500 branches to make a bow.
Exactly.
I can just collect one high quality branch and I can make a bow from that.
Isn't that the best part, man?
Absolutely. You can, the way you couple it together to get stats, the stats you want, or like different modifiers on it or whatever. Like if you want more damage to wildlife, if you want more damage to weak spots, or whatever it is, you use certain reagents for the crafting process rather than the amount. What matters is the quality of it. And it's not like the jump in between quality tiers is that big. Like often it's only like from 15 damage to like 16 damage. So it's not humongous. So you don't necessarily feel compelled to go for the pristine every time unless you're me.
Do it. Yeah.
And you feel that you're that much of a perfectionist that you have to. But that is stuff that I really appreciate in terms of like systems design.
All right. What about you, Johnny?
So I had two wildly different experiences with the game. Last night, I played it for the first time, and that was an example of how not to play this game, which was talking with a friend, having other stuff going on, playing with mouse and keyboard, which I didn't like. I didn't like the bindings and stuff and how things flowed with it. And then today, I turned it back on. I had nothing. I was just focusing on the game sounds. I had the lights down. I was just looking at stuff and listening. The game has a great soundscape, by the way. It allows you to hear stuff.
Sure.
Dude, you can like it. What's that?
Dude, a mile and a half away, you can hear the mine.
Very much evokes Far Cry Primal.
That's when I was like, hold on, I can find the objective where I have to go based on the sound, dude.
Yeah.
That's next level. We talked about Ghost of Tsushima having a good system with the wind. This is even better, man.
It is.
Because you're literally just focusing your ass in the game. It's amazing. So today playing it in this like focused way with the controller was almost magical, just traversing the jungle. And I love the cooking. Just grabbing.
The cooking turned out to be...
The cooking is great, dude.
Yeah, dude, it's ridiculous.
I'm putting points into it, and I'm just, I'm stealthy and I cook. It's amazing. I know it sounds weird.
No, it does. So I'll point two positive things out. And that those things will be just sort of overarching positive things. But then I also want to point out why I'm pointing them out. So I'm going to point something out, and then I want to point out why I'm pointing out. So the first thing I want to point out is I saw people give it all the way down to a 6. People I sort of trust in what I'm hearing, up to an 8 or a 9. And I came away, I rarely read reviews, but I came away going, makes sense. I found myself agreeing with like the bigger websites, which it was a little odd. I'm not saying we always disagree. That would be ridiculous. But it was like interesting. The big sites are actually giving it like 8s and 7.5 and above, which I consider this game to be solidly in that. So I see all these reviews and I'm like, okay, I see the open critic or whatever. And I'm like, that's low, but that's also because they gave it to a bunch of influencers. But I do want to point something out. At what point are we going to stop pretending that if a game has even some open world and interactive elements to it as a first-person shooter, we're going to pretend that every game needs to be compared to Far Cry? Because what I felt when I came out of this was a bigger departure than Primal was, and Primal was a fairly substantial... and I don't
departure
mean
from the previous, because it wasn't really a shooter. Yeah.
Right, and even the AI in this is now Snowdrop, which handles not perfectly, by all means.
Oh, it's shit. Let's just
well, but there are 3 things I noticed that no Far Cry game has done, and one of the big ones was that they understood that you don't need to have a ton of enemies in the game world. So this is more of a Zen hunter game than it ever is a Far Cry game. And what I start to see is the laziness of comparing everything easily to just be like, it's Far Cry. And I'm like, whoa. Yeah. If we say that's Far Cry, then every game with any kind of weapon wheel, and I talked about that in my review. I said, I know this is going to happen, but I want to point out, it's got a weapon wheel. Yeah, it's got a thing that you may need to, go check out. And it's got this and that. But every open world first-person shooter, that's not a Far Cry thing. That's open world. And comparing it to Far Cry is easy. It's very easy. And you can just be like, it's Far Cry. But if you actually play the game, most people I know who played the game to beat it are actually stating, this is, maybe they wanted Far Cry, by the way. I've talked to a couple people who wanted it to be more action-packed. So they felt on the opposite side. They disliked it more because it was less busy. But it's been a fantastic sort of deep dive into how easy it is to compare something and walk away thinking like what the game is. And I've had a lot of people playing it going, this does not feel like a Far Cry game. It feels like an open world game, but it feels more close to something else than it actually does to Far Cry 5 or 6, which is it's complete chaos in those games. That's one positive about Avatar. It is almost never chaos. It's its own thing, man.
It happens on occasion that you'll run into like 3 packs of like Viper wolves
at the same time. The black guy,
but it's pretty rare. You also get sometimes, like you mentioned, I think you criticized Breakpoint before with all the encounters with the guys with the broken down bike, where sometimes you'll get in an area and it'll be really congested with Navi. So you'll have like
sitting around.
So you have like 6 or 8 groups all within like 100 meters of each other, just sitting there talking.
The one I
giving you
noticed
stuff and
repeated
stuff.
a lot, Silver, or not a lot, but I know a noticeable amount was them trapping an animal.
Yeah.
And there were like 2 mechs. Well, it wasn't always the same, but it was like a mech and some guys, or 2 mechs and a guy, or 3 mechs I saw as well. 3 mechs was actually difficult if you walk in on it. But that's another thing that was so great here. Since it doesn't spawn enemies that know where you are instantly, it's just those guys wherever you are. For the most part, whenever I went into battle, I knew I was going into battle. Far Cry, there's been times in Far Cry where I think I'm done with a battle.
Yes.
And
And
you
then
just
something
get
else
pinned
spawns
up.
in immediately. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think it's awesome, man. I think, how's the dialogue? I would say that's a weakest part because I don't like
it's very
Avatar.
stilted for
And
the
it's
most
very,
part.
it's just,
Well, what is amazingly written though is the encyclopedia in game.
that thing's amazing.
For like it covers everything from the flora to the fauna in very specific detail. Like that really gives a sense of this being a breathing world with a very distinct, believable ecology to it. It's really well done, that part as well. Honestly, I'm also disappointed that there's no melee weapon. I'd really hoped for a spear.
Like
to
a
be in the
Navi
game,
spear.
or like you don't get stealth takedowns either, which have been a huge part of Far Cry games. That's
I
not
like
in here.
that you didn't, but I also agree that I tried 10 times before I realized you didn't. I would
you only
sneak up
get
on
your
a guy.
fist, but
Yeah.
it is pretty satisfying to like drop kick the little humans.
Or tear
Like, it
somebody
is-
out of a mech.
It was funny to me because
throw
people have
their body
often likened the Navi to the Smurfs.
Yeah.
But really, in this game, you feel more like Gargamel terrorizing the Smurfs, where like the little
dude.
RDA.
It's Brock Lesnar beating up kindergartners, man.
Yeah.
Dude, it's amazing. It feels legit to go in and tear somebody out of their mech and throw them. And there's a guy that's like crotch level, and you leap up in the air and you smash him down. And you're like, yeah, dude, yeah, Hulk smash. That's awesome.
I don't know if you experienced this though, but the mechs are one of constantly where they're just standing in place, sort of dancing all the time for me.
So the dance, so this is something that I did see. I didn't see that, but I do want to point out, I love the dance animation because they were showing their, if you listen to the thing, they'll be like, let's do, it's time to fight, blah, blah, blah. So that's a dance animation. What I did notice is that if you're in trees, like if you're in a occluded, there's a rock or a root, that the mechs have a tendency to steer well clear because I think they get stuck easy. I'm just guessing.
Yeah, they get stuck constantly, and especially if you play, like my play style is very much hit and run. So I'll take out like a mech with like a stealth shot to a
and then circle around,
and then I'll flank around and circle, and they'll lose sight of me. And when they lose sight of me, it's like they completely bug out. They don't know what to do.
They don't know how to go back to their.
They just like kind of stand there and sort of jitter, and it looks really, really messy.
That'll be one thing that they need to patch is, and who knows if it's a CPU cycling thing where they're trying to make sure the AI can do what it needs to do, but they're worried about having it taking too much FPS from the game or something. So it'll be interesting to see if they work in some efficiencies there. I didn't have too many of those issues. I also was surprised I didn't have any bugs, but I would say I would agree with you guys. First of all, I think that the flying, and later when you get another steed, I talk about it in the review, but it's not a spoiler, but you get a horse.
They also showed it at E3.
They did. They showed it in multiple trailers. Yeah. I love the way it handles movement. I actually found that steed movement or whatever not only 10 times better than Far Cry. Like when you ride an animal in Primal, but it was pretty
that's
janky.
Really messy.
Yeah. This felt right, and it's like that. It also shows those guys understand that like I don't want it third person. Like that would be the worst thing in the world. But I love that because of the neck of the dragon, of the Ikran, they do that third person, because you can stand that thing up and stop in midair and then twist back and dive bomb on people, which is awesome when you first learn it. When you first stop and then twist back around, you're like, oh shit, I can sort of stop on a dime. First person, you would see nothing but neck of the creature. It would be ridiculous. But it felt good in first and third, which is surprising to me because I think I'm so accustomed to Bethesda games where you jump into third person at a Bethesda game and you're like, Jesus, man, please just don't even allow it. Like until you guys figure it out, don't allow it. There's a lot of elasticity to the character, and that translates to the movement. which is phenomenal. The movement is.
I'm really impressed how well it worked in first person.
I mean, what's even more impressive, I think, is when you're up in the trees and you're running along branches, you don't really get stuck.
No, I know, dude. They've cheated a lot, and not in a bad way, but they've mimicked what that character can do.
Not
on
only
a branch
do you not
human.
get stuck, but it's actually really rare that you fall off.
Yep, absolutely.
And when you do fall off, you really feel, oh, this is my fault.
Yeah, this is my fault. Yeah. There's definitely a get out of jail free guardrail there. That's like let's pretend
feels that way.
Let's pretend
it's like
this is a cat, not a person.
You were 2 inches short. It will still grab it. It will give you a little
absolutely still be like, here's a little bit of edge to it. I also hated the jump at first. I got in there and I was tapping the jump, and it did say you can hold the jump, but in normal games like that, I don't want to hold the jump while I'm shooting and shit. And I was like, what? But once you understand momentum, the first time you hold a jump and you're not moving, you're like, okay, I can jump higher. But then once you start realizing you can load the jump and move and leap, and then you get a skill to double, but not double jump. It's not as cheaty as it sounds.
It's like a little fart.
It's a little extra oomph.
Yeah, and if you touch the ground, you can bound. And I was like, damn, man, they thought that through.
You can also actually use that skill to, like, the good old super bunny hump all the way up, like vertical pieces of terrain that you're not really supposed to be able to scale.
Yeah, almost a little like a Mario game or something. Yeah, they did a great job. Let's see. We'll do the Super Chats, and then we're going to jump into the Game Awards. Prep your questions for Game Awards if you got them, everybody. What did you guys think of the Game Awards as well in chat? Rick, $5 Super Chat. Fellas, do you think Switch 2? I already asked that. I'm sorry, Rick, because you have another one. $5 Super Chat. I forgot to say thanks for your coverage of the Game Awards last night. It was a great time. Hellblade looked incredible. Yeah, we had a fantastic time. It was Absy and I. 6 a.m. for Absy when it got done. Poor dude.
Jesus.
He kept it together, too, because I was like, do you need to go? Because my ass was, oh, my God, that was a long podcast.
It was a long show, too, man.
Yeah, we'll talk about that, too.
Yeah, Jay Reaper tend to drag on.
Yeah, but that one, I mean, this one drug on compared to a lot of awards. It was long. Jay Reaper, $10 Super Chat. How do you feel about the Dying Light 2 crafting and equipment level progression? That's a split from what we've been talking about. I like Dying Light 2.
To be honest, I don't remember the crafting system.
Crafting too much?
Me neither.
And equipment progression all that much from Dying Light 2. I haven't played it since its release. So
it's more like what we said we didn't like as much, collecting many of something, you know. There was a lot of those, like scrap metal or whatever, I can't remember, but, you know, collecting 80 of something versus what we saw in Avatar. Yeah, and guys, everybody listening, if you do like Avatar, you played it, or you, at very minimum like the looks, be aware, Far Cry's engine is done. The Dunai engine has been officially shut down, so it will all be this engine, which is fantastic news. The idea of seeing a Far Cry with this is, I just cannot wait. It will be so exciting to see how they do that. So we're going to jump into the Podcast Game Awards. I'm going to switch our view here a little bit. There is my bingo card. So people watching, you can see the ones I got right. If you saw on Twitter, I had one called Project IS. That was Blade. Project Ice Skate, because he says there's always some motherfucker trying to ice skate uphill, but I didn't know how to put it into a tweet without leaking it. Even though I do want to shout out once again, one of our patrons figured out my tweet less than 4 minutes after I posted it about Blade. I think he knew because the tweet isn't like me. It started with a consonant, and it was like there was something about the writing, and because I was trying to get the word Blade in first letter of each sentence, and I did it, it was like 3 minutes later, I get an email with
your
the
own
picture,
little cipher,
and they circled it, and they're like Blade, and I was like, oh my God, like it took it was fast, man. That guy was on it. So you guys are some smart people, man. We got some. I never got a bingo because I made a mistake and should have lined up the rumors I knew about in a row. And instead, I plotted them all over my bingo card. We failed.
Is that how bingo works? You need like a full row?
You're supposed to have a full row. And I started at 3-3, and then I kept hearing rumors, and I got a company or two who were like, hey, blah, blah, blah. So then I had 5-5. And by that point, that's 25 options. You're just like, all right, dude, that's probably not going to work out the best. But I left it. Or I didn't do 5-5. I did 5-4, I think. What? 1, 2, 3. No, I did do 5-5. Let's talk about God of War first. And there's a reason why. So, first of all, the naming is amazing. You have Ubisoft's Valhalla Ragnarok roguelike DLC, and now you have God of War Ragnarok Valhalla DLC that is also roguelike.
That's true. Yeah.
So when they announced it, we saw the name, and I stayed in the podcast. I'm like, if that's called, and it popped up right as I said it, I was like, Absy, and he's like, I know, what the hell? That is such a weird way to do things. But so we're looking at roguelike and God of War. Like, do you guys just speak up? Like, do you guys think that's not a good idea, but it's because it's happening, but and it's free DLC. But do you guys like the idea? What caused you to return to it?
I like it. I mean, I thought combat is one of the strongest aspects of the new God of War. Like, it feels just really fun to engage with. So, like, more excuses to sort of, or more reasons to engage with it on a like never-ending potential cycle
of battle.
Sounds fun. To just dip in whenever you want, and then just do a couple of rounds or whatever it is. I like the appeal of that.
Yeah, no, I get that for sure. Johnny, you?
Yeah, I like the idea of facing different monsters and stuff like that without the need of, the story lining up, because, some monsters only made sense at certain parts of the story and stuff like that. So I like the idea of, like, here's this almost not random, but, sort of like picked out monster for you to fight. And then the idea of maybe having some new gear or some cool gear that you can unlock if you get good at those modes, if you kind of go through that. So, and free, I love here's some free DLC. I love to see that. I think we got a couple other, or one or two others.
Yeah, it was cool to see a shadow drop, right? I mean, I think everybody's accustomed to one shadow drop. I think we got 2 or 3. And, sometimes we call them shadow drops just meaning they're not mentioned. Other times we mean day one, like right then, it's playable right now.
And I have to admit, like, the first thing they showed in the trailer was that chair, the throne in the water that you're showing in the video. I thought it was Elden Ring.
Oh, okay. So let me tell you.
That's not what you thought. Yeah.
So I've been hinting about an Aquaman game for a while.
Oh my God.
It showed that, and this is just what we've been talking about, right? Like in chat for a long time. And it showed that chair, and I was like, what is that true?
It's Aquaman.
And I was like, it's Aquaman, and then it popped up. So I think for everybody it was sort of surprising. Free, looks cool. It's God of War. They know their thing. Like they know how to nail it. I think that'll be a blast, and it's awesome because you're going to also see people talking about Ubisoft's. I saw that Ubisoft had already stated that they had seen some increases in SEO and people searching for Valhalla and seeing Ubisoft, because I know with that DLC some people probably just didn't jump into it as easily, and so the idea that there's that DLC, I heard a lot of people being like, oh, it's Valhalla, which is big for me. Maybe they beat it, but they're like, I'm done. Yeah. And so Ragnarok didn't entice them, but now you've got free DLC and DLC for a game that maybe you want to come back to. So it
makes a lot of sense, right? Because Valhalla is supposed to be, I mean, Silver, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's supposed to be like you're fighting for all eternity, and you're just enjoying battles. Like, isn't it? Isn't that like? Well,
Valhalla is actually where they go to celebrate.
That's actually where they drink endlessly. Yeah,
it's where they drink
and other things.
I thought because
sometimes they fight.
This was not portrayed.
It's because they're drinking and boozing basically up until they will fight at the end of the world when Ragnarok comes. They're basically boozing up until then.
Oh,
yeah.
I
think it fits. For a title. I mean, everybody understands the word Ragnarok now because of the Marvel movies and like Thor and all that kind of stuff. That's just sort of the way it is. So I just walked away from it going, I get it. I don't love it. I don't love it as a name, but it just sort of, it makes less sense than Valhalla's does, weirdly enough, when it comes to how they named it. But overall, it works. It is a thing. So God of War free DLC coming soon. It's awesome. Another thing shown that surprised me. I don't know what you guys think about this. Well, it didn't surprise me because I knew it was coming, but surprised me in how good it looked and how impressive I thought it was, which was the Hellblade 2 video, the trailer for Hellblade 2. Just like, man, I cannot wait to see that game. I mean, I know Hellblade isn't God of War. It isn't, It's its own thing. It's a more like contained battle kind of section and stuff. So we'll probably get some disappointment.
I'm very much looking forward to it as well. Like Senua is one of my favorite protagonists probably in video games.
It just looked good, man.
Yeah.
It just looked really sweet. Like it looked exactly like what I was hoping Hellblade 2 would look like. And we're starting to see a little bit more gameplay, interspersed there with some of the ads and stuff. What about you, Johnny?
It seems maybe a bit more horror, or at least a bit more intense overall, I would say. Like they're taking it a step up.
I think that it probably is more intense, but I'm also wondering, did you see the character with her at one point? There's another character. So I'm wondering if maybe there'll be a little bit more of a, not a step back for the intensity, but a tiny bit more of a...
a levity from the other characters.
or like
something.
At least interaction with other people other than just her voices or whatever.
Right, because it was so solitary and so dire in the first one.
Yeah.
It was very oppressive. Like
it was very oppressive.
In your head.
Yeah, so it'll be cool to see how they handle that. I'm actually excited to just see it finally. We got, did they do the announced date on that? They did, right? 2024, what they said? Not the date, but the year. I think it ends with 2024. So
let me check. Yes. Yeah, I think that's all they said.
Yeah. So I don't think that one will be delayed. I think 2024 is pretty much spot on with what we've heard about how far they are. And it's not one of those open world games where, you have a bunch of stuff to worry about. It's more along the lines of a very specific thing. And I'm excited for that. So.
The one sort of complaint that I had from the first game was the camera was very close to the character. Almost like Alan Wake 2, I have this issue where sometimes I get disoriented because the camera is so close to the character that when you're fighting several people and you're trying to turn around and find your way, you just kind of like, oh my God, I don't have a peripheral here. So I'm hoping that's a little bit looser in this. I did notice that the dodge, I think it's the same as the first game, which is kind of like a shuffle. It's a little bit like an Alan Wakean shuffle,
like Tom Brady being thrown out of a car to tackle somebody.
Yeah, so I'm not the biggest fan of that. But with that said, I liked Senua's dodge more than Alan Wake already in the first one, so I'm not too worried about it.
Yeah. I would say that what I'm seeing from Hellblade 2 looks pretty much exactly what I was hoping it would look like. It's looking a lot like what I expected it to look like, and then the date seems to fit with the way the game is styled. And like I said, I don't think we'll see a delay. Yeah, I think it makes sense. It's like I think we're sort of locked in on this one because I know I saw some people saying
unless like something totally
that's exactly right. Yeah, something weird that we're not aware of, to try to get it to run or do well. What were we gonna say, Johnny? Did we interrupt you?
No, nothing. I was just looking at the video and they got some magic sauce with how they show fog, wind particles and stuff like that. Just looks very cinematic, very, very pretty.
Yeah.
Very special.
In chat, which of the trailers actually were you like the most interested in or the one you liked the most? We'll jump to Exodus. Okay. So this was on my bingo card too. So I want to point out something. On rumors, most people aren't going to tell you exactly what's happening. You'll hear, expect a big star, blah, blah, blah. So I have big non-gaming star in-game. And I got to tell you, in all the years that I've been doing like Game Awards and stuff, I would not have expected Matthew McConaughey to walk out onto the stage.
All right.
Yeah. I was like, what is going on? And then it went from, okay, it's probably just going to be him announcing the game.
Interstellar callback.
Yeah. And then he started talking about that. And I was like, you know what? I just have a feeling this is the one that like was leaked or rumored about at least. And it actually looks really cool. My assumption is, so I don't know if anybody doesn't know what this is, but it's basically something happens on the other end of a light speed gate. He leaves his family member there and then jumps in, goes through this gate, and everybody else ages while he doesn't because, of course, he's at light speed. And Matthew McConaughey said, I'm going to have a personal relationship with everybody. So my personal opinion is he's the AI of the ship. Is that, what other places would he fit? An alien race that they fight, possibly? Maybe he's the leader of the alien race. But I mean, it's Matthew McConaughey. You're going to want him to have a large spot, right? You're not going to be like, hey, he's the sidekick. He's the doofy side. I mean, you could, but it just feels like
it looked a little bit like Returnal to me,
a little bit,
in the gameplay, but less like, I guess dystopian or alien like. But then I thought, you don't hire Matthew McConaughey to do a Returnal game where it's all about the gameplay. Like, this is going to be probably story heavy, right? Like, it's going to have some meat in the story. I don't think you would just get him for some voices. Like,
I don't think so either.
It would also be like the name on the billboard, as it were, in part, like the star quality, regardless of
regardless
how
of
much
where
he
he
could
is.
do.
It's just when he said, I have some experience, so can you, and my relationship with every single person will be.
Yeah. What would that mean, right? That's a strange statement.
Yeah. So I'm just thinking AI, and he helps the AI helps the person make decisions. I don't know if you guys know this, but it is mostly Mass Effect and some other developers who are making this, Mass Effect developers.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would say at the end, when you finally see some shooting, you're like, this makes sense. Like,
unless maybe he transcends into some kind of more immortality and becomes like a Kang the Conqueror time traveler after going through the
dude,
gate.
Right? I mean, you never know, right? Because he's like, he says some choices are going to make huge decisions. It's like choices before he goes in or while they're in the, there's
so maybe it is more about an RPG thing where your choices have a big impact. Like,
I mean, I heard a lot of Mass Effect is the one I heard a lot of people compare it to.
Yeah,
in terms of how
so
it
did
looked.
I. And it even looked that way it was like prior. They have a little bit of that Oblivion with Tom Cruise look in Mass Effect. There's the highfalutin, but also sort of Flash Gordon-y sci-fi. And then once they showed them in the game camera, I was like, oh, that looks like Mass Effect when the enemies showed up and they started shooting. So. Yeah, we'll just have to see. The big name, though, regardless of everything else, man.
Wow.
That is ridiculous. Like, I didn't think they could top. I mean, I think Keanu's amazing, but in a weird way, I actually think that's topping it because it's like, dude, Matthew McConaughey, what?
It's pretty exciting. It's pretty cool.
It is, and also, I love Keanu Reeves, but he's not necessarily.
How can you not?
Flexible in his acting, right? And Matthew
True.
And Matthew McConaughey is, regardless if I like it or not, Matthew McConaughey started as rom-com. That's all he did. And then he chose to not act for a while so he could break out of it. And he comes across the same in a lot of stuff. Absolutely. There's some stuff he's done
Dallas
as well
Buyers
that I'm like,
Club and
and Mud, right? Wasn't it Mud?
Yeah, Mud as well.
Mud.
Yeah. So, and then his way of talking to the crowd, even with a dumb joke here or there, he was just smoother, and I was like, oh, this might work out in a game really well. He seems like one of those guys that's comfortable, and I think that sometimes when you get stars in games, not sometimes, a lot of times, you get stars in games, you can almost sense their discomfort.
They're a bit stiff, like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll have to see. I mean, he could. What if the game starts and he's just like, all right. See the guy talking to you. Yeah, it'll be cool, man. I think
or
Exodus
he starts
is
talking
probably
about
one of my
time as a
faves.
flat circle. That's his monologue.
Oh, dude,
from
would
True
that
Detective.
not be amazing if he just starts up the Interstellar thing? They're like, hey, if we're gonna go for it, we're gonna go for it. Next thing, Light No Fire. So this is from the No Man's Sky guys. Did you guys get a chance to see the trailer?
Yep.
Yeah.
So personally, they've talked, so they use a formula to figure out how to make the universe in No Man's Sky, and there's been a bunch of talk in science and mathematicians as well as those guys. He's talked about it before, that you could turn it inwards instead of a bunch of universes. You could do a planet down molecules, like how would you be able to do this? I got to admit, man, what I saw looked, not only did it look pretty much exactly like what I would think a game from them would look like in current tech, they had a mistake with their generation. So you get on a dragon, and he's flying up into the mountains, and if you look to the left, there's a tower that is a good 90 feet in scale off the side of the mountain. So it's only barely tipped on the side of the mountain.
Oh,
just
it's
like
not connected?
It's not perfectly connected, yeah. And I was like, and then they stated, this is all multiplayer footage. Oh, there it is right there. You can see it. If you look at the tower right there, it's definitely not on, people. So what I saw looked, I mean, it looked pretty much what I would expect. I don't think the technology that he wants to do and what he wants to do is out of bounds. I still think that if they were reversed and he had made a planet and said we're going to make a universe, I would be more confused by how they were going to do that than I am the reverse of it, which is what we have now. But I don't know. Do you guys? What do you think? Like, did it interest you? How about that?
Absolutely interests me.
Okay.
Yeah, it looked. I think it looked lovely in terms of its visual style and in terms of believability. I mean, for the tech wise, I mean, flight simulators possible.
Yeah,
It
right.
still continually blows my mind.
Right. Yeah,
Little-
that is true. That is true.
so
Yeah.
I don't have any sort of immediate objections as to why it wouldn't necessarily be possible to procedurally generate that sort of thing. It's just going to be a question of what's the end result going to be of that procedural generation. That I don't know, and that's going to be interesting to see.
Like, what's the playability? Because those planets, I love No Man's Sky, right?
And are there going to be like areas where things get meshed together in ways that are really jarring? Or yeah,
and can you build real cities? Because he never showed cities; just showed villages and some towers. But we didn't, and that is a big missing thing in No Man's Sky as well. Even with the the modders can make them, and people can buy and make them, but the game doesn't.
That's actually
have
one
good
thing
ones.
that did appeal to me, possibly about this hook. Now, I didn't hear Murray's pitch, but just like the impression I got from the trailer is that this is like a completely untouched world that you're going into and then putting your mark in. There aren't any like alien structures or whatever that are already pre-built that you're going to find out there. It's just going to be you leaving and other players potentially leaving the mark.
That's possible, Silver, but I believe I saw enough creatures and buildings to believe that they have races or something on the ground.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I mean,
but I get what you're saying.
Also, it does seem there are races because they did have the like bunny head and bunny head people, or rabbit headed people. So
they show a city different... right now, actually. So I guess I'm wrong too. Yeah. I said they didn't, but they are. So. Yeah, man.
Yeah, I'm really curious how they handle having some type of story too in that, because
right.
That's tricky, isn't it? I could see myself losing a lot of time just building stuff because I like building. So I'm sure this will interest me. But
and then someone's going to come over and knock it over. Yeah.
So
right.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Oh, hey, see, okay, so that is exactly what sort of Johnny was talking about. He wants to build and stuff. Are you going to do private servers? Or it sounds like it's not. It sounds like it's a planet, and no matter how many people you get playing, you still won't fill up a planet. And that is actually true, because I bet you it's not Earth size. It's probably larger. I'm just guessing, but I would assume it may be larger than an Earth size planet to make sure that, it's like, do you have a planet for the Pacific Northwest? You have a planet. You would have to, right, for servers, for just connections. I'm just talking out my ass here. I'm just thinking though. But yeah, what happens? Do you get to save your tower, or can a dragon fly by and beat the shit out of your tower? And you're like, oh, I just built that thing. So
that leads us into combat too, which we didn't really see in the trailer.
Just
that's
some
another
swinging.
Question mark.
Yeah, just some swinging.
I mean, that's also a bit of a, not concern, but I'm just a bit skeptical that they can do really good combat. I didn't like it in No Man's Sky. That's just my take,
It's terrible.
So if they can do something really cool here, I'd love to see that. But these games do struggle with combat, by the way. All of these games that are like, whether you want to say survival or,
but open world survival style
open
games.
World survival. Yeah, usually it's very janky on the combat side. So
I think the one positive I got out of this is he announced he was working on something on the side that was more ambitious 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So 5 years ago, they were already prototyping this and looking at it. And then prior to that, even we had heard people talking about using the formula that they used for the universe, which got him in a bunch of trouble because the super formula supposedly is patented. It's this big old hubbub about how they built the universe, but it doesn't matter because in the long run, it's over. And then now the idea is, how do you reverse it? I personally feel that you're going to get this, but I would like to see combat, resource gathering, because at some point if you've mined all the minables in your spot, do they ever regen? Because if they don't, then you have to sort of go like, okay, or is it going to be like Fable, Fable 1, when Peter Molyneux said, you can build a tree or you can plant a tree. Can you? Yeah. I mean, that is not it's not out of the world to assume that they have a formula where they can state different levels of a tree.
Can regrowth.
Yeah.
There can be regrowth or whatever,
Yeah. And it's so interesting to see how procedural development works because it requires absolutely unbelievable amounts of resources up front. And then, as we've seen with No Man's Sky free content, it then allows for them to make massive changes that a lot of other games would completely crater.
Because it can adapt more easily.
And once they understand the formula and they're like, oh, we want to do this, we want to do that. Personally, it was probably my, not game of the show, but it was pretty high up there on trailer of the show where I was like, oh, damn. And I loved it, man. He came out there and he's like, listen, and Jeff was teasing him about not selling it too much. He was teasing himself.
Here we go again, or something.
But he did a good job because what I came away with it, knowing the tech they've used in the past, I'm like, that's not that. That's not
it
as
makes
crazy
sense.
as
I look at it, and to me, it makes sense. Yeah,
yeah.
I love
I'm
this.
Excited.
We see it from a lot of these devs in the show where they're not talking about something they just started, like an idea in the vacuum.
Yeah, correct.
No, like they've been working at this for, in this case, 5 years. I love that. It's like they went to work. They're not like talking about their plans of an idea of doing something.
Right.
I love this of like not disclosing your plans until they're a bit more mature, It's kind of a stoic principle, really. It's keep it to yourself until it's mature, right? Until it's ready.
Guys,
and then make an impact.
It's so amazing, man, because I've been like, especially when you remember getting the magazines and, blah, 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 and then you see how the world changed and how games changed. It is, I can't describe it easily what it feels like to live in a post-Cyberpunk world and a post-Starfield world and a post-No Man's Sky, him getting all the shit and all the problems they had world. Because it has created developers who, they look at all this and they go, oh, we need to not do this. We need to make sure we don't want to cyberpunk people, as the verb became. For a while there, it was like, I was getting emails saying, don't worry, we won't cyberpunk you. And you're like, damn, that's like, when you become a part of the actual overall language. English. Yeah, like that means, and they learned too. Hats off to them. They learned. And I think Sean learned that it's like what he wants to do and thinks will work may not work. So it's like, you should probably just be better at not telling everybody everything that you want in. Because most of the stuff, sandworms are in, all that stuff's in No Man's Sky, but it took 10 years. So, man, I don't know. I'm excited for it. They have a history of delivering after a history of not delivering. So they're probably the weirdest one for me. Lancelot says, ACG, I'm hyped. Just a No Man's Sky fan who's wanted to just settle a single planet and fully explore. Yeah.
It's cool, man.
It is. I don't know. I'm seeing most people in chat actually believing maybe some of these guys are new and they didn't live through the 10 years ago when we had to deal with it, or whatever, however long ago it was. Yeah, man. I mean, what I'm seeing doesn't look. I think Johnny's point about combat's probably my biggest worries.
Yeah.
There are cities, SBZ. I was wrong. They showed a city in there. Multiplayer is what they show. Four player. They showed races, hunting. And by the way,
but is that city supposed to be player built, or is it supposed to be?
That's absolutely true. You're absolutely right. Yeah. Can I point out also, guys, this is gameplay, because you can tell it's gameplay. That's the most pristine, smooth gameplay I've seen on a trailer in a long time. I'm looking at the trailer right now going, it
looks pretty clean, man. Yeah,
that's pretty smooth and pretty clean. And I can usually tell if they've like touched something up. GTA did, where they turn off things while they're doing stuff, and they have very solid, non-moving cameras at times, and that's because you've turned off your AI all over the world, so you can just show the most visible.
The rabbit head people just crack me up because I keep thinking about the most useless sidekicks in video gaming history, which is Slippy the bunny from Star Fox.
From Star Fox,
who is like the rabbit or like the bunny.
What if you just kill them all, man? I mean, who knows? ACG question is more RPG like or sticking to survival?
Slippy was the toad. Sorry, I forget the name of the rabbit.
Was the toad? But was he the
Yeah.
useless one, or was the rabbit useless
No,
one, but you don't
no,
remember
he-
the name?
No, yeah, sorry. Slippy the Toad was the useless one.
That's what I thought. Okay.
The rabbit
Yeah.
wasn't useless.
Yeah, Slippy
I
the
mixed
Toad
them up.
was.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
So that's my mistake.
No, that's all right. Yeah, it's, looking in here, I'm glad you guys are positive on it because I would say
Yeah,
You know,
Peppy was the rabbit.
it's Peppy. Look at that, old boy. Naming it perfect with Peppy. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Dude, imagine if when this comes out, we have like an ACG world or whatever, and we have, friggin' like random people from the Discord, like a few of us are working and building something. Maybe Karak, you're heading out to do some hunts. You're you just want to hunt stuff. Like division of labor, get some coordination going. Beautiful.
Pay to get into the Discord, but I'm going to put you to work in my game.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Pick up some wood.
Pick up some. What are you
Thanks.
doing, man? Don't chat in our Discord. What are you talking about? I'm so far. I can just say what I saw, how smooth it is, what they showed, how they showed it. That looks promising, very promising, and also that they were understanding to watch out with what they were saying. I actually do believe that was a joke, but also a real thing to talk about, which is that Sean, don't go too far, and it just felt like a pretty natural, like.
The
He felt pretty
trepidation in
comfortable.
Jeff's voice. He's like,
Yeah,
here
yeah.
we go again. Okay, he said very ambitious.
Remember when he
All
said,
right.
I'll see you in 2028 or 2029 or something like that because, for the full game. And you're like, oh, man, I hope not, but it's possible. Moving on from there, let's talk about Blade. So, personally, when I heard this news, this was like a week ago or maybe longer. I can't remember. It's been a fast week, but got news that Blade was like coming from Arcane. There was also some rumors about Dishonored 3. And I had always looked at the Dishonored games. They sold well sometimes, not well others. It's sort of been patchwork with Dishonored, where sometimes it's hard to tell if it did well or did do well. I think it's done well over time.
Whether it did well sales-wise or just in terms of
critically,
like,
yeah. And then
critically,
later
yeah.
it sold. And does that matter as much as if it had sold day one, where the companies look and go? But I got to tell you, Blade, I think it's a perfect fit for multiple reasons. One being we haven't had a Blade game in was there a PS1 or PS2 Blade game? Maybe?
Yeah.
Okay.
There were definitely movie tie-in games.
Were there movie tie-in games? Okay. So see, I don't even remember that. So you're looking at and I think that Blade it fits Dishonored a little bit, and it fits like the combat motifs and stuff like that, knives, swords, like that all fits. It also fits that Blade sort of has not magic, but his ability, as a vampire, you can, and speed, whatever it's called,
like
blink and Dishonored.
Whatever, yeah.
So to me,
and very resourceful, like
very
different
resourceful.
approaches to situations.
Yeah. It is so funny, though, when it popped up, and Absy already knew about it because I'd warned him, and I was like, dude, it's going to be in the barbershop. It has to be in the barbershop. And that's how they started it. I was like, this is perfect, man. They know what they're doing. I firmly believe those guys may have found the title that,
rekindle the flame.
Yeah.
Their chance to redeem themselves with vampires after
Redfall. Different developer in Arcane.
Yeah.
But yeah.
True.
Not only do I agree with that, Silver, but I also think that it allows them, this is just me being on their side, it allows a developer to have an IP that creates vested interest early.
Yeah.
So,
with a potentially bought-in audience already. Yeah.
Right. And if you look at Dishonored, even if it sold 10 million, that's nowhere near Blade. So the idea of saying Blade by us is a whole different ballgame. And to me, that's really exciting because I have a feeling
Certainly to
internally.
something like Death Proof, which is an entirely new IP.
And it's a Marvel one, and we got the Blade TV show, right, coming? Don't we have the Blade TV show coming out this next year, I think, 2024?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I think so. We've got a Blade, TV show. So I think it's a perfect storm for them, and I'm really happy that. I mean, everybody does that with Arcane. It's like Arcane made this, and it's like multiple devs. But I think that these guys and seeing a success on their side, or how about this, weighted towards success is what I really mean. It helps them out a little bit, and that's where I know people get mad about IPs, but personally, I think sometimes if you can get your world and you've already got experience with a lot of stuff, like you said, Blink, and all that stuff, where it fits Blade's powers, dude, you could, they already know what something needs to feel like. I mean, didn't you feel a little bit like a vampire anyway in Dishonored? I mean, some of those skills even control, because you could control rats,
right?
In
possession, you could possess people and stuff like that.
Yeah, so it just, I don't know. It just sort of works for me. What about you guys in chat? Were you excited about the Blade, trailer? I guess it's a short trailer. Blade movie got delayed. Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, so it's awesome that Blade's going to have something coming out at the same time. I would say it's good it's delayed because these guys said 2000... What'd they say? Was it 2025 for Blade? Or did they do a date? It's showing the end of the trailer, and I don't see a date.
There wasn't a date on the trailer, so from what I remember.
Yeah. So to me, like, this is awesome. It's a perfect fit for them, and it's a design that absolutely works with what they've done in the past. So to me, it seems like it's a perfect fit. It's really great.
I did find the trailer pretty bad, but
just not evocative enough.
Didn't say anything.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. Yeah, and I would assume, by the way, that's
it's just an announcement. We're making Blade. That's literally it.
Teaser.
Yeah. The only thing I told Abzy was I had heard it was not just the name, and I think what I've heard from most devs is they will never just do the name anymore. So you won't see the title screen. Blade's coming from us. Wolverine. I think Wolverine showed the very first one. Did Wolverine show him at the bar? Or was that the second one? But yeah,
Elder Scrolls 6 did that.
Did they do that, or did they show the camera pan over that field and then do Elder Scrolls coming up? Because there was that one too. I can't remember.
I think it did pan over like a field, but that was like a stock footage. Basically.
It was a deposit photos field, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, no date is what Midas says. So expect 2026, 2025. I absolutely agreed. I think that we're looking at a while here for that one. Next up, Black Myth. I want to know what people in the chat think of Black Myth, because I got to tell you, I'm fucking blown away, man. Oh, I had the trailer turned up. Sorry. I'm blown away by the art style, man. Just the everything about it. I don't know.
Yeah. It looks like Johnny. It's so based on what we know about the game, it's mostly around the bosses. So don't think that you're gonna be exploring very large levels, at least based on what we've seen. It looks like it's mostly designed around really cool battles, and that's the juice for the game. So it does make sense that, they look this creative and this interesting.
Can I say something?
Yep, please.
That is incorrect.
Correct me. I thought, because that's what I heard in a preview. Go for it.
Yeah, that is incorrect. It's not. What would we compare it to? A Dark Souls? Is that what you think? Maybe.
I would say way less exploration than Dark Souls was my impression based on previews. But again,
that is there. So I would say definitely less than a Dark Souls.
Okay. But not like.
But
it's
not
Liza
nothing.
P. It's not too. Yeah.
See, I think that people are forgetting Liza P. I think Liza P is probably the perfect junction. This is more than Liza P, but less than Dark Souls 3. Does that make sense?
That's already way more than I thought, and that makes me happy, because I thought Liza P was okay. It was a bit lean on the levels and stuff. So that makes me happy that there's at least that.
Yeah. And we'll see, of course, when they all get done with it. But I would say that if it is, regardless of like how you get to these guys, how you get to them, one of the things that I was impressed with was that they've already got a lot of those bosses and the world view sort of nailed down. And sometimes I see stuff that looks janky, when they fight in a boss or whatever, they fight one of those major characters, and it's like you don't see that here. Like most of the stuff looks, fairly detailed and already sort of ready to play as a beta, let's say, or a test, send some guys to test it. So it's August 2024, so we'll have to see, and we'll see some more previews, and we'll sort of see how it all pans out and how much exploration there is or isn't. Could be like Azura's Wrath. You guys remember that one?
Yep.
That was pretty much very close to boss battles, but this one does have some exploration, and they showed it in could be wrong. I think it was 3 trailers ago. They showed him walking around, and there were normies, but I don't know what those mean, you know. And what rumors I'm hearing aren't, well, they're not really super solidified yet. So we'll have to see just how far they go. But yeah, man, I don't know. It looks phenomenal. I love the idea. Love the idea of the character. He looks good. You saw some transformations, you said, Johnny?
Yeah, your character can transform into different forms with completely different attacks. Some of them really nimble, some of them very slow, but really strong. There are some that are also only for like traversal. So I think you can turn into a fly or a small thing that flies.
And just so you know,
like
they snuck in. You saw the stock guy, Johnny, with the balls on his head?
Yeah.
The testicles, glowing testicles. If you look behind him, there's other ones in a line where you walk. So there's exploration there. That's a normal guy.
Okay.
So, yeah, there's definitely something going on there.
There's some. Yeah, at least. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Maybe closer to something like Neo or more exploration.
I would say Neo is probably a good example, because while I love Neo, you really don't look at Neo as an explorer. I mean, you know, it's got
that's pretty much straight linear, straight through to the end.
And no matter what, they all end up, you know, you take the right or left, you end up same place center goes, but it might be a different enemy there. But we'll just have to see. Yeah, man, that game looks good. What do you guys think in chat? You like the look? Demo would be awesome. Yeah.
Dude, I think the one thing that jumps to me is how many different skills you have access to as a player. Because when you think about it, if you think back to other games like Sekiro, you don't have that many like things you can do. Right. You know, like you got 3, 4, 5. You know, you start to mix in some of the other stuff. Sure, you got a bit more, but here, like the amount of stuff you have in your arsenal seems incredible. Yeah. And so what that makes me think is that the skill cap of this game is going to be really high. I think we're going to see some, the people who are really skilled and understand the combos and everything. I think we're going to see some really awesome mechanics.
That's something I think that evokes Neo as well, where in Neo you had like ninjutsu, guns, magic, traditional weapon, melee, that you could sort of switch between and build for.
Do you guys think...
And was all applicable and usable.
Yeah. Did you guys see the part where he jumps between the lightning bolts? I felt that showed a pretty easy approach for a normal player. It looked like it was fast, but there was still a good gap where it wasn't like really, how do you describe it? Where it's like right here. So it looked comfortable. Like it looked like something a normal person might be able to learn on. And I call normal, but you know what I mean. Like
average Joe.
Average Joe. Yeah. Would you say did Liza P? How did Liza P's difficulty progression go? How did you feel about it?
It had some difficulty spikes in it, but overall it was an easier game than your typical Souls game.
You did find one of the boss fights in it to be one of the hardest you've ever had, right?
Yeah.
I seem to remember that.
Yeah, so it had some really big difficulty spikes, in my opinion, and this will vary a lot based on the player, right? But there were a couple, but just the average, when you look at kind of the aggregate, it's a little bit easier, I think, than some of the other games.
Okay. So I don't want to hold you to a number. Like, I'm not going to make you rate it, but I am. Like, would you on a different with 10? What's the hardest of the Dark Souls style games at a 10?
Yeah, that's.
I would say maybe Dark Souls 2.
Okay, so let's just say it is Dark Souls 2 as a 10. Would you say, Johnny, that Liza P is a 7?
No, in that scale, I would say it's closer. I would say it's an 8 or something like that. So it's pretty similar to a Dark Souls 1 or Dark Souls 2. That's what I would say.
Because I felt Steel Rising was pretty easy. You know, there were difficulty spikes in Steel Rising, but I would say Steel Rising would be, in my idea, like a 6 maybe, and then Neo 2 is above that, Neo 1's above that, Sekiro's above that, but they're all above it because they have a mechanic that makes them above it. And Bloodborne's above it too. You know what I mean? They require There's almost one thing that each one, the dodge or attack in Bloodborne
or
to
the
get
parry,
or the parry. And the parry
Sekiro,
in Liza P as well is pretty tight. That was one of the biggest complaints, was that, that parry in Liza P was insane. Love the games. $2 super chat popped in to say Cyberpunk's ongoing award is BS. Yeah. What are we gonna? Is there anything to say about that? We'll talk about the awards in a second. How about that?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good point. It's a good point. Looks like people are interested in it. Dark Souls is not the hardest, but Kiko doesn't say what is. So it is the hardest until you give me a better answer.
At the end of the day, it's all very subjective. For me, I'm not that good at the deflecting stuff. So Sekiro was the hardest of the bunch.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense.
But now when I come back to it, it seems a lot easier. So it's all, and when I started in Lies of P, it seemed like a very hard game. And then when I kind of, got really used to using the dodge really well and the parrying, it got a lot easier. And I beat the last boss in the first try. So that's why I say it's easier, because many bosses were pretty easy. And then there were some that were ball breakers for me. Yeah.
And then it says, I thought people thought Bloodborne was the hardest.
That's a good point. Yeah, maybe
is that a good point?
It might be up there, but it's hard to parse how much of the difficulty is also due to the performance itself. When you compare DS3, which is completely smooth, 60 FPS, constant, everything behaves as you would expect. And then Bloodborne is like, like beasts jumping at you, and then the frame rate is all over the place, and it's all, I don't know. Yeah, it's more jumpy. Yeah, it might funny. Be also up there.
Bloodborne does have one thing that makes it a little easier, in that you can regain health through attack and staying on the offense a bit.
Trading. Yeah.
So you can sort of stay in the fight there a bit. Compared to others.
Omenumaru, sorry, I butchered that, says Neo 2 is the hardest in terms of mechanical difficulty, insane skill cap. But damage
Neo
scaling
is way harder.
Not as unforgiving. Yeah, I would say I think I found...
Especially like that boss fight you get in Neo 2 against the huge guy who massively charges inside the little tiny room. Like that.
Yeah,
fight.
I know exactly who you're talking about.
That fight is messy. Yeah.
It's so funny because I think Neo 2 is pretty easy for me to get a grasp of, but I had a very difficult time with the charge blade stuff, katana, where you pause and key blade or whatever. I can't remember what it is. But that was the only thing I had a difficulty with. But then in Sekiro, I found the enemies cheaper. And so I actually had difficulty with the enemies because I wasn't really playing to them. I was playing to what I thought would work. And that took a while as a reviewer. I was like, oh my God, the ogre, as I always joke about. So, And then Neo 2's bosses, some are BS in Neo 2. Yeah, man, that's a good point.
Yeah, I wasn't even thinking of Neo. I was only thinking of From Software. But I would say Neo is harder than any of those games. Neo 1 and 2, especially the DLCs. The DLCs, they always say listen, man, we're going to break our balls here and take it to the next level.
So Kiko does answer. He says DS3 is harder than 2. Nameless King and Gale are harder bosses than anything in 2.
I did not find that to be the case, but
either did I. That's what I was.
These are subjective individual experiences.
So, have you ever had that boss that? So, and I do this all the time. So, and I did it with you guys. I told you there's a certain game that I was reviewing, and I was DMing you guys, going I have no fucking clue what's happening. I'm getting my ass kicked. This is impossible. Right. And then somebody else, whatever reason, right? It just even if I know the weak spots or whatever, I'm just what?
Even between us, from what I remember, you had a lot of trouble with the in Neo 1 with the the claw lady.
Dude, hate that. Yeah, I did.
I didn't really have that much trouble with her.
Right.
Thankfully, for me. So yeah, these are really individual, subjective.
And I suppose your weapons, right? Your what weapon?
Yeah, your weapon, your build, whatever is going to be potentially more applicable to a certain boss than it is to another.
Yeah, play style.
Yeah, this is a good chat because it's so funny that it's easy for us to you say Dark Souls and then you say From games, right? And then you look at Steel Rising and you're like, well, that's pretty much Dark Souls game. And then you look at Liza P, and you're like, oh, that's another Dark. And then Forgotten Lords, which we haven't even mentioned, is Surge. Surge, by the way, I can firmly say, for me personally, that Surge 2 had one or two guys that I had huge issues with. In fact, I would say maybe one of the hardest bosses was in Surge 2. I don't know why. And I talked to some people who say that they were troublesome, but I don't hear Surge 2 popping up that often. But I felt there was definitely difficulties in Surge 2.
Yeah, so Surge 2 really depended on your playstyle, because there were some playstyles that you could legit ignore enemy mechanics, because you could just entirely block everything, and kind of trade hits. So it really depended how you played that game.
Which I guess that's the strength, right? Of those games is that, because I used the Kirsagama in Neo 2 when I was having good luck in some where, because it has, spin move, where
the
it
AoE.
hits. Yeah, the AoE. And then I'd go up against somebody that like Abzi would waste because he has a katana.
Just get in your zone. They get in your...
Yeah, they get in that spot.
In your grill.
And, they get up in your grill.
Where for me, where I really started breaking Neo 2 was when I went for like a rifleman build, where I just basically turned the game into a shooter. And
oh my God.
I regenerated ammo on every single headshot, so I just kept headshotting, boom, 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 as he like sort of spun around the reload, which felt really cool. But that also was kind of broke the game in difficulty.
Yeah. I can see that happening. Sekiro was awesome, Bad Done Well says. Yeah, Sekiro was... dude, they're all... I mean,
cool. Yeah.
Even Steel Rising might be... To me, I think Liza P I didn't like that much, but Steel Rising's I liked, but it's sort of low on the totem pole of all these. They're almost all good. And then Lords of the Fallen, I stopped because of the tech issues, but once that gets fixed up, they've done some patches.
You didn't come back to that, right?
I don't think I ever will, just because, but I don't have any real issues with it. It's just, it's just one of those things where
it didn't interest you that much to like...
No, it did, but the tech was ridiculous. The performance was unacceptable. Like it was flatly, that was one of the few games where I'm just like, I'm not touching this. I'm not, until they fix it. And then they had the patch where it nerfed the PvE versus the PvP. And once that happened...
they had a mess up there. Yeah, true.
Yeah, and so and it just becomes hard, because you're doing other, we're all playing all these other games. Yeah. It's hard to set aside time for a Dark Souls style game.
And then once you kind of, get burnt or you lose interest in a game, it's pretty hard to magically regain.
Yeah. Speaking of magically regain, let's try to magically regain people's interest in this Kojima
Let's do it.
announcement. So I think... So the Kojima announcement, it also had, what's his name? Jordan Peele, right? He came out.
Yes.
Supposedly Kojima walked out of the door that's from PT, which I think is just, if it is true, is just a poke at, gaming. Probably doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, it's just a meta comment.
Meta comment, yeah. I did know about this one, or at least, I did. And the one thing I have to say about this, after it's all said and done, if you listen to the people talking, they sound very much like they are training sets for AI. And the more I listen to it, the more and one of the things that we talked about about 2 months ago, maybe the first podcast Abzi and I did on a Wednesday, I had stated that it seems weird that Kojima said Microsoft was the only company that could do what he wants to do with his next communication game. And then they mentioned the cloud again here at the event. And so I was like, is it possible that there's some kind of AI training where you're training it to play through games or what have you? Because if you notice the talking they do, that's like training sets for language models. But then the one girl screams like she sees something, like she's learning emotions. And I was like, are they going to do something in the cloud where the way you play adjusts these guys, or you're adjusting them in some way? Because they made it very clear that it's like cloud movie game that you can play. And
the rumors I've heard about the cloud stuff are that it somehow ties into player defs, and relating player defs into the game world somehow. I'm not sure how.
Interesting.
Whether it's some kind of similar way to like Dark Souls but more active or something, like more active ghosts or something maybe, with player defs. I have no idea. But I think the rumor I've read online is that it's related to player deaths, or recording player deaths and putting it in somehow.
Could it be just that it's something strange, like maybe these things are watching you play and they're reacting, and they're slowly, I mean, the AI is quite literally learning and is learning, like maybe because Microsoft's big into AI. I mean, obviously they're the
right.
billions of dollars in AI. It's like, are they doing something where you're playing and that's a spectator or something? And then OD is the name, and I've looked up AI and OD. I've been trying to figure out if there's like the OD lettering means something with AI, and there's a couple. Nothing really fits. But I was like, if it was OS, I'd say overseer or something, where they're looking over the top. But I was like, I was trying to figure out what OD meant. I mean, is it like id, but it's for like AI, and am I wrong? I could be totally wrong. I don't know. It's caused me to actually be much more interested than I was. I was actually not interested, but now with them doing what looked like training sets for language, I was like, what? And you guys know me, I'm sort of cloud. I like the cloud stuff.
Yeah, I hadn't picked up on it. They mentioned the cloud thing without explaining.
They did.
They just said it in passing, like, hey.
And Jordan Peele, so I'm not as big of a fan as horror. I know that a lot of people are, but he is one of the horror names right now. And some of the stuff he likes to do is subvert a little bit. So it's like, what subversion goes on there with AI and stuff?
And
yes.
I mean, Kojima.
Yeah, and Kojima
also very much enjoys that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Peele said this is almost like a new kind of media where it's not really a game, it's not a movie, it's kind of like its own thing, which is a big claim.
It is.
I mean,
but
that description also fits pretty much every game Kojima has made since Metal Gear Solid.
A leak said it's overdose. Yeah, that was a year ago that it stood for overdose, and then that was debunked. So unless that's come back, that was almost a year ago when that was leaked. That's what I read this morning.
Overdrive, I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, no one's going to know until it comes out. And if it's overdose, then again, you got to look at overdose of what? Emotions from watching players die? Because that one character screaming, and then the one old guy we saw, who, by the way, is in Blade. I don't know if you guys remember that.
Oh,
He's the one who always yells at the young vampire in Blade. Frost.
Yeah.
He runs.
And
he's the
that
Italian
older guy.
Yeah.
He's got an amount of expression in his face that's you could just look at his face. It's like all expression, dude. Yeah. It's amazing.
I can't wait to see it just because you guys know me. I'm not huge into that, but it's just one of those things. Sent a super chat where I put 2 of my most hyped. Oh, did you do a super chat? Let me check right now. Give me 1 second, and I will check that and see what the super chat is. I didn't think I missed any, but I apologize. Oh, wait. I felt I read that. I didn't. I'm sorry, Jemmy. Jemmy5404, $2 super chat. The first Berserker looked sick, and the last Sentinel. I think the first Berserker looked incredible, and I don't think I put that in my list of games, unfortunately, to show. With video.
Yeah. The action in that was amazing.
Yeah, the action in it looked incredible. The art style looked different than I expected. We'll jump back to the original screen before we move on to the next one. Yeah, the last Berserker started out looking weird. Like, it didn't look great. And then the more they showed...
First Berserker?
Or first Berserker. Yeah, first.
Yeah.
And... yeah, to me, that looked pretty incredible, man. Animation-wise, particles, looked like an anime mixed with a game in a way. Like, it just...
yeah, the gameplay of that, I'm all in for it.
Yeah, do you think that's a Dark Souls-style game? Or is that more of a DMC?
No, I think it's more of a DMC.
Okay.
That's the impression I got.
Okay. Yeah, that's sort of what I took away from it as well. Originally, I thought it was maybe a Dark Souls thing, but then as they continued to battle, it certainly looked like it was probably more of a DMC style, combos, more characters. Yeah. Onin is what I'm going to call you from now on. I'm sorry, man. Barely any sleep. Combat looked very cool there. Yeah. Old Boy says it's like Phantom Blade. Could be. Could be. I hadn't thought about that. Phantom Blade. Yeah, I don't know, man. See, that's one of the problems is they showed a lot of stuff in that. But I came away from it still not knowing what it was. I think that's sort of happened with a couple of these trailers.
Yeah.
You know, where you
it's confusing because it's the first Berserker. I just checked to make sure I didn't fuck it up.
Yeah, make sure.
And then it's also, we have Last Sentinel, and we have the first Descendant. So we have many permutations.
Yeah. And I think that these guys get their trailers set up and they know what it is, and so they're nervous about spoiling anything. And so when you do get it, you either get a bunch of stuff. We don't get titles anymore, thank God, but you get a bunch of stuff, or you get something nebulous like this, where you're like, what am I seeing? At least with that one, they showed a lot of combat. I thought that they showed enough for us to sort of get an idea. Did they also show co-op in that one?
No, not that I saw.
Thought that'd be funny if it was the first Berserker and you got a best friend with you. First and second Berserker.
First and second Berserker.
Moving on from there, let's talk about Sega. So Silver and I were joking about this prior to the podcast starting. I think prior to even Johnny coming in. But so the rumor was that what was the rumor? It was that Sega was coming with 1980s, like 1980s,
yeah,
but sort of big dick energy or big energy. That was the rumor. And this is why I posted on the Twitter a couple days ago where I was talking about Blade, but I also said don't make up fake stuff like Altered Beast is coming, because I had been told Altered Beast would not be coming. And so it was all in one tweet. I was trying to sort of shove stuff in there. But at the same time, I was under the impression that it was going to be possibly a not a merger, but a deal with Microsoft. For whatever reason, I don't know, in my brain, I thought maybe it would be more of a Microsoft, Sega bringing exclusives.
Maybe also because that's something we've talked about on the podcast before as a topic.
But what we got was better, I think, which is just, here's some remakes. Streets of Rage, right?
Yeah.
Which looked
Crazy
awesome.
Taxi,
Crazy
Jet Set
Taxi,
Overdrive,
Golden Axe, and Shinobi.
Yeah.
And
more, they said.
Well, they said more, knows? So there you go. Maybe, right? There you go. Maybe Altered Beast will come. I thought it looked awesome to me. I mean, I think Silver, go ahead, talk about Golden Axe, though.
Yeah, no, that was the standout for me, where the transition to 3D to me didn't look super great. Okay. Just to put it like that, it sort of dampened my expectations for it. Maybe I'm just too old school in that regard, but I don't feel like that really felt like recognizably Golden Axe to me, so much as it just did like a third person brawler. But I mean, Shinobi looked really solid. Crazy Taxi, Jet Set Overdrive looked really solid as well.
Streets of Rage,
in terms of first impressions, Streets of Rage
as mini second looked awesome. Yeah. I got to tell you though, of all those games, I think those are all great, and I want them. If they had done Shakon the Forever Man, I would have canceled the fucking entire stream, man. Because that's one of my favorite games of all. I love the idea. I loved everything. A little like Legacy of Kain, I guess. But Sega's got some cool older, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't seen Phantasy Star in a while,
right? At least not a real one, right? We saw that
outside of the online MMO,
yeah. Streets of Rage they showed really short. I would agree with you. Golden Axe was the odd man out, right? He was a wingman. Basically, he was a wingman for the rest of the games. He's just there to help you pull a hot girl. It was a little odd looking, but I mean, dude, I thought Jet Set Radio looked amazing. Like I thought that looked really good, and Shinobi looked really good. Crazy Taxi.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully Streets of Rage can keep up what we got with Streets of Rage 4, which was already amazing.
Which was already really good. Yeah. Anything from you, Johnny, for Sega stuff? Are you excited for Sega stuff? You care?
No, I didn't get to play those specifically back in the day. So, it depends like how they release those. Could be a way for some people like me who didn't play them back in the day to experience them now, which we always talk about, as being a positive.
Well, when you see Bad Done Well says they almost made Shakon 2 for the Dreamcast. Yes, they did. I have a document that's like a terabyte of concept art that they made. It was online for a while and grabbed. They came that close. Johnny, on these, did you see any of these 3 or 4 or 5? Did you see any of these couple games? Was there any one that particularly grabbed you?
I think Streets of Rage is probably...
That's fair. Yeah.
Because I also did play a recent one they did. I forget exactly which.
That was 4. Streets of Rage 4.
4, yeah. And I like that as well, so...
I'm looking at the Golden Axe, and I'm just so happy to see the Golden Axe, but I'm also, like, suspicious that of all of them, I'm like, I don't know that... yeah, man, we're just going to... that we're going to have to see on that one, because just looking at this footage, it looks like it could be a great idea, but the movement and the spinning in place and stuff just looks rough.
Yeah.
Let's see. Sailor Mercury says Jet Set Radio looked great. Great originally because of the art style. Yeah, absolutely. Skies of Arcadia would be another one people want to see. Absolutely. What other Sega ones? Altered Beast. Yeah, I would kill for an Altered Beast. Altered Beast would be amazing.
I think we talked about in the Discord a bunch as a potential that could get announced was Panzer Dragoon, obviously.
Yeah, right. Can you imagine if even if they remade because the source code?
We did get that indie game. Right, that was kind of a Panzer Dragoon. I forget what it was called. Last year, the start of last year. I just forget what it's called. But that was kind of a hardening back to Panzer Dragoon.
To Panzer Dragoon,
where you're riding like a beast, shooting stuff down, and aerial combat.
Oh. Damn. Yeah, I don't know. Space Channel 5. Somebody says Comic Zone. Is Comic Zone Sega, or was it a developer that they paid? Zillion. Yeah, let's be honest. If there was a Zillion again, you'd see me cancel the stream. And I'm pretty excited about Sega coming back, even if these titles aren't necessarily super grabby. Speaking of super grabby, though, we got to move to the big one. So I want to see the reaction, or lack of reaction possibly, from Johnny, but Monster Hunter Wild. So does this excite you? Does it not excite you? Like, what do you think about this new one?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So, a couple things to note. One is that they have like 2 different teams. The ones that do the portable games, like Rise was technically a portable game for Switch. And then, they have the Nintendo DS Monster Hunters and stuff.
Okay.
And then they have a different team that did Monster Hunter World. And there are those of us who really liked World and liked less... what we saw in Rise. It had some cool stuff, some cool evolution in there, but the game itself, it just has that portable, taste to it. So this looks like it's back to the Monster Hunter World team, and it's much more open in a way, and more monsters and stuff that we saw in the trailer. I got pretty excited for it. We didn't see anything spectacular. I wouldn't say like, what I saw here seems like next gen or, impossible or anything. But the idea of another Monster Hunter, kind of like World, but maybe expanding on some stuff, maybe a bigger scope, excites me a lot. So the idea excites me. What we saw didn't really do much for me. I didn't see anything specifically there outside of being able to like kind of float around on that mount. That was cool.
Yeah, that was very cool. The platforming.
Yeah, maybe more verticality. Maybe that's a lesson from Rise, right?
So, from what I've heard, it is open world. You see the massive desert, and those spots, as much as I played World, I don't feel that I've seen spots nearly as big as the first moment they show them on the dunes and the last part where the title comes up and the character's on the hill looking out and the dragon flies by. So let's call it opener world compared to Wilds, right? Larger world.
Larger.
To me, looking at the size of this world, looking at the size of worlds that have gone on in games, looking at the platform that they now have, which is minimum Series S and then Series X, PlayStation 5, Switch 2 maybe, and PC. From what I've seen, man, it looks like it'll probably hit all of my points that I didn't like about World, even though I like it more than Rise. And then also that movement that we saw in Rise with the wire bug, it feels like that's the mount now. Like there's something about the mount that did seem really movie, really flexible. And so if that all comes together, dude, I'm actually more excited about this than maybe you are right now. I don't know. From what I'm seeing, it just looks exactly like it's going away from the couple problems I had with World. There weren't huge problems. There was a lot of alleyways in World. There was a lot of funnel.
It's funny because generally I like hub worlds more in games. Well, it depends on the game, but just, if you had to pick one.
Yeah.
But I think for this game, an open world would be amazing, right?
Yeah.
If you could just team up with your friends and it's this open world and you're just out there hunting, that to me would be cool. Get rid of some of the stuff we saw with the expeditions in World, where you would go out and collect feces from monsters all day and stuff.
Yeah.
And focus on the hunting itself and the exploration. That to me,
I mean, when they show the character fly in and land right now on the cliff, and then they show the entire, that seems to me to be 3 times the size of even the largest space I ever played in World. So that's why, I'm going more towards it. Could be massive hubs, but I think at that point you're also pretty close to open world. It just depends on where your base is.
Open area or whatever
open
you want to call
it. That was the joke we used to call it, just called open area because it was, they were so massive. But yeah, it's going to be exciting. Silver, did you do Rise or World?
No, I don't do Monster Hunter. I'm not really a fan of the sort of the grind and the
and it's there. And that's why I think that open world speaks to me, because it's there, but it's bigger and it's more.
Right.
My brain can go, oh, there's this other space I want to go to, and I'll grind on the way there, and that alleviates that grind feel. Because I agree with you. Even World, obviously World for sure had a bunch of grind, but yeah, I would agree with that. It's gonna be cool, man.
It also has a bit of an MMO feel.
For
sure. A little bit.
Yeah, for sure. Johnny, you say, so this is the World's team?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I feel like we're starting to see the occasional title that is showing that they know their minimum spec has jumped up on the hardware. And there's a couple titles now where I'm like, oh, some things were holding them back. Streaming engines in particular were holding them back.
Because you see it in the textures, even in the trailer, this is not stuff you could run on the Switch.
Yeah, right? Or even the Xbox One, original, obviously. But those original-based platforms, we're starting to see the NVMe sort of come up, and you're starting to see streaming engines take advantage of it. I mean, with Avatar even, you're starting to look and go, there's ways for them to, let's say, load up minimal-level assets far away that you probably couldn't do with a hard drive because of the speed of everything. And now we're starting to see this adjustment where we're getting more and more advanced stuff. So very cool to see. I don't know. Well, you guys in chat, it looks like everybody's saying World probably has more hub-based. Wild seems to be open world, but might still be hub world too. We'll call it hub open area, like we said, hub area. Sam Torres, $5 super chat. Happy Friday, gents. Thanks so much for the show. I would love Cyborg Justice. That is a Sega game for anybody wondering.
Happy Friday to you, brother. Thank you.
Yeah, and happy Friday to everybody in the podcast chat, man. Are you guys doing anything cool for the weekend for your Friday? Are you doing anything? This is Friday, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Just for a second.
Well, it's Friday in some places, and
it's might be Saturday in some places, right? Yeah. For Abby, it's probably Saturday.
In Asia, it's Saturday.
Yeah, exactly. So, and New Zealand, right? Isn't New Zealand the one everybody goes to unlock games early?
Oceania. Yeah. Pacific,
How many people do you think now understand time zones due to the Xbox allowing for people to get games early in New Zealand? I bet you there's a number of people who now understand time zones far better, and they know where New Zealand is just from a video game allowing them to get in early.
I think specifically New Zealand. Some people just now know.
Specifically.
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings would also be New Zealand.
True. Right? Yeah.
Ric Flair Randy is asking us a question. Everybody in chat, like I said, I hope you have an awesome Friday. If you have any questions, feel free to post them. Ric Flair Randy is a patron in the Discord. He says, after noteworthy transformation of games like Cyberpunk and No Man's Sky, which were initially criticized for their poor releases, do you think there were titles from the pre-constant update eras that, despite their flaws similar to the initial state of Cyberpunk, could have been salvaged? And what ones? Anthem, for example. Anthem was probably post that.
It was post, yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying. Yeah, I mean,
there was actually a title way back.
Oh, here
2001, and
What was it?
I've harped on for quite a bit, but that one was kind of salvaged. Because it did have the good fortune of being an MMORPG, but that was Anarchy Online, which had one of the most disastrous releases
right
in in gaming history. And they did eventually, Funcom did sort of make something out of it eventually. But at release, that game was a complete disaster. But that's always the one that pops up in my mind, because I was there when that game released, and even like installing the game like corrupted multiple times for me, so I had to keep trying to install it for like 4 hours before finally.
It's funny you mention it, because we talked about it on Wednesday. We talked about Anarchy Online, right. And there was another one because we were talking about MMOs, and that one came up as being one that took a while and is still around, right? Anarchy Online, I believe, is still around. Or am I wrong?
I wouldn't be surprised if there are still fan servers and stuff like that, like there are for a lot of these old MMO RPGs. But I mean, Funcom went on to do Age of Conan and stuff.
Yeah, and Age of Conan is a good example of one that also fixed itself a good deal. I know Age of Conan, when it first released, at least to me, I thought was a bungle.
That one also released in early access, I think.
Oh, maybe you're right on that. Yeah, that's true. Can't really once you get out of jail free card, right, for early access.
Yeah.
I hate you guys. I hate early access. Jimmy 5404 $2 super chat. I don't know if you guys like them, but the Atlas games I'm hyped for. I saw some Atlas games that looked pretty good. They don't usually call to me, but they looked.
Did you see the one called Metaphor?
Yeah,
that's a little bit different. That looked pretty cool.
Yeah, go ahead, Silver.
The Persona 3 remake looks good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I think in the name, you just nailed it for me, is that I feel like Atlas retreads a lot. And so it's hard for me to get that energy up. It's like.
Yeah, and it's even, retread is a good word, because, and now it's going backwards, because I've started playing Persona 5. So now going back, and I tried going to 4.
Right.
And now going back to 3. I'm like, I'm going back to where those ideas
It was like
started.
the Yakuza remakes,
like the Yakuza remakes. It's absolutely right.
You're meeting the ideas at their, like, their roughest,
basic genesis. Yeah.
The fetus, the ugly.
That is ugly, absolutely true. But no, I mean, they're not ugly. That's one thing. They definitely have that art style, but the genesis of those ideas where they've, because I remember
prior to all the polish and iteration.
I still remember my friend bringing over his place. Oh, go ahead.
Something to be said for staying in their lane. They know what they're making, and
they know what they're making. Yeah. I was just going to say, Banzo Wild brought over his PlayStation. This would have been a 2, I think, for Persona 3. Persona 3, you shoot yourself in the head, right, to summon? Or is that 4? You guys remember?
I think it was 4, right?
Was it 4? So he brings this over, man.
I don't know.
And I remember I was playing it, and I liked the graphics, the look, and I was like, hey, man, this is pretty cool. And then that first summon where you shoot your own head, and I remember just being like, I've had family members commit suicide. So it's just like, by the way, I wasn't offended. I was more shocked.
No,
like,
it was
whoa.
Shock,
I don't get but it was such an, somebody says it is 3. Okay. That one, whichever one it is, sounds like everybody's correcting me.
3,
it is 3.
Yeah.
That was shocking. Like one of those moments where you're like, wow, that was a lot to put in a game. That's some heady stuff to put that in a game. It was wild.
Speaking of people who stay in their lane, by the way, Dragon Quest always, stick to their formula, right? Mm-hmm. And there was a game during the presentation that I thought for sure, like,
was Dragon Quest?
This is Dragon Quest. Which one is it?
Mana is what it turned out to be. I think it turned out to be a Mana.
It's Visions of Mana, but I thought it was the next Dragon Quest just because of the look. but I actually liked what I saw. Visions of Mana, like an action-based where you're moving around in real time and
I agree.
Fighting cool bosses. I actually like the look of that.
You were not the only one, because I'm pretty sure 99% of the people in our chat, and Abzi and I, were both like, Dragon Quest? I mean, it looked a lot.
It just had
had that look. What were you going to say, Silver? Are you going to add something to that?
No, just I feel like the odd man out then, because the moment I saw it, I was, this is Secret of Mana.
Well, I think also if you played those, because I haven't.
Yeah, I didn't.
So
yeah,
to me, my
go.
closest equivalent was that, but I get what you say because other people in the chat were saying, "Oh no, this is mana." It wasn't many.
Yeah,
but yeah. So I totally get where you're coming from. You're definitely right on that. It depends on if you played them. Wannabe Dev says, "What's your favorite introduction of a gameplay mechanic in a game? For example, broom flying in a classroom in Hogwarts, or the Mount mission in Avatar."
I think to this day is still the ability to drive cars that we saw in GTA. We talked about this a lot in the past, where it became a thing, where you don't just see the cars, you can actually jump in and drive them.
And drive them. Would have that been 3? So 1 and 2 were flat, top down. So this would have been 3 or Vice City for you, probably.
3 would have been it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the first time you get in, right? And you're just like, oh, man. In 3D, I can drive this car. It's a good feeling. Always surprising. Any exacts from you, Silver, or open ones like that? Just a general example of a mechanic.
I mean, there are so many, but I'm struggling to think of one out of hand, unfortunately. Give me some time. And
I'll give you a generic answer, and it's probably because of the audio. But this really... So it's not even a good answer, but it is my answer. I had played a bunch of shooters, and all the shooters were health-based. You get hit, you die, or whatever. Halo number 1, when they have them overcharge the shield to blow it up to test it, and you're just waking up as Master Chief, and they were having you walk into the little revolving thing. They're like, walk here. Boom, 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 boom. And there's something about it. It sounds so dumb. It was like I was unaccustomed to shields on a character. I was unaccustomed to recharging stuff on a character. It was most of what I played, I'm assuming, was probably the Arma, and well, back then it would have been whatever, but it was more about the meat of a person, and that was it. And I remember just being like, oh shit, it recharges. Like, and in my brain, I almost instantly started coming up with strategies. I'm like, so I can touch in, peter away a little bit, back away, let that recharge. And it was different than health, because I knew that when the shield was done, your health was in deep shit. So it was almost made health even more important. But yeah, that would be mine. I don't know. It's a bad answer, but it's like
for me, maybe bullet time from Max Payne.
Oh God.
Yeah, that's good.
Back in the day, that was pretty transformative for a shooter. Felt like the first time you did the sideways leap, with the handgun, headshotting people, that felt really, really cool.
So good.
It did feel very John Woo, like it was supposed to. It delivered on that promise completely. So that would definitely be one.
Reading some from chat, you guys have some good ones. So again, in chat, if you have ones for like a mechanic being introduced, but these are ones I hadn't thought of, but I do agree. Faces 412 says Eternal Darkness introducing madness mechanics. That thing. If anybody doesn't know what we're talking about, go check out a video, because they patented that. In fact, they patented some of that. So that's a good one. And then
especially the one that cut to black with power outage or
power
whatever
outage.
it was.
Your save game has been corrupted.
Yes.
Dude, or the clipping, you clip through the ground, you start sinking, and you're like, what the hell's going on? Oh, dude, some of those ideas were just ahead of their time. Tembo just says, overall, Mortal Kombat Fatalities has always been my favorite gameplay mechanic. It allows you to stunt on people after a victory. And yeah, I saw that the first time. Yeah. I was so accustomed to 2D fighters in the arcade, man. And, you're just shooting, they're shooting, or not shooting.
But all you got was the KO.
Yeah, perfect. KO, right? And then, like he just said, in a weird way, it is you stunting on the win. It's like, the football celebration.
Especially in the arcade, if you knew how to do a fatality in the arcade.
And it was a secret. Yeah. Remember, it was like some people, if you were playing, they wouldn't tell you, and they're pulling off a fatality, and you're like, you almost didn't care as much about losing as trying to watch their buttons and be like, up, down, left, right, quarter circle.
Yeah, there's so many iconic mechanics, aren't there? Like, you think about the portal thing as well. The simple idea that you can put a portal in the wall and then come out another. Yeah. So that simple mechanic, it's just so rich. You get so much out of that.
Can I just point something out too? Not to diss on Ratchet and Clank, Rift Ahead or Rift Behind or Rift Aside or whatever the game is, but the portals in Portal are still better than
Yeah.
Like, it was stunned me how talk about like mechanics that looked like they were going to be something. It turned out to be nothing.
Right.
And
Dude, especially because you moved a small amount of space.
I know.
Like
yeah.
you would just move over a bit in the fight.
I wasn't even a huge friend of Portal, the game, but even when I saw it, I was like, the puzzle work, the 3D thought process, the time thought was just, it was insanity, man. The thought process was nuts. Jemmy has a good one. Oh, go for it.
I also thought about what is probably maybe the biggest one for me, sort of longest love affair of my life. Getting a line in Tetris the first time.
Oh, and seeing it blink out and disappear?
That dopamine, like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
And then and going for it every time after that.
That's some ancient motherfucking advice. Like that's the
35 years, pretty
of
much.
Mechanics. Yeah, that is awesome. I get it though. Yeah, because when you see what you're, and that's the thing is maybe they'll even tell you, but you know you're just like, let me just do it, and then you're
especially
doing
if you're building the mountain to get the Tetris there, or like clear the 4 lines, the Tetris, and then you get them multiple in a row. Oh, that is
feels good. Feels good, man.
Yeah.
Jemmy has a good one. Nate in Uncharted doesn't have health, but a luck meter that runs out, and the final shot is what kills you. Yeah. Yeah, those are all really good, and I think that took a long time. I'm pretty sure that was only announced a couple. I don't know. It could be a decade now, but it wasn't long ago when we didn't know that, and we just heard about it from from a developer discussion. Coolabon says Batman Arkham Asylum's fluid combat was so crazy. Batman flips around. Yeah, Batman. So to me, Batman feels like an extension of AC. So I actually feel like AC, the Assassin's Creed 1, is one of the first hit wise to win kind of games I had played.
Yeah.
And Batman and stuff came later, which I liked. But I feel like the pre of all that.
Assassin's Creed had a lot less focus on like movement and dodging over enemies than Batman. That was basically just all about hitting the counter.
Yeah. Spot the counter, hit Y to win, and then or if you don't get stabbed, hit Y to win. Day-night systems and Morrowind. Day-night systems are awesome. We still get those games, right? You still get those games that occasionally don't have don't have time in the game. And it's just daytime all day or whatever, and you're like, man, I'm missing a lot. It actually feels now like it almost needs to be in all of them.
And especially if there is, another thing is, if there is day, night, but you can't manually like transition, there isn't like a campfire or bed or something you can rest at to pass time. You just have to pass time within the actual game world. Yeah.
Do you like it better that you can pass time, or do you like it better that you can't and you're forced to work through the game world?
I want to be able to skip to like go to bed and rest or whatever, and not just like stay up like an insomniac in the game. Never resting or anything.
Here's a good one. Mac brings up one that is truly a game changer, and that's Rewind and Forza. And I would say that really is, because I think that a lot of people who played racing games probably play it now because they're able to do that in Forza.
It's a huge thing for accessibility for racing games. Like there are a lot of racing snobs who will say, get this thing out of my rally game or whatever it is, because this needs to be skill-based. But you can always just choose not to use it. It's there to sort of provide a window in for people who don't, where it isn't necessarily even just a skill issue, but there might be a physical impairment or something that does that provides a hindrance for them to do that, where all of a sudden now they can keep up.
It's also like the way, sorry, Karak.
No,
I was just going to say, it's like the way to learn is to go through the exact same situation again and try something different. And so the ability to replicate that exact turn, and say, what if, just the curiosity, what if I brake earlier, or, maybe I brake less, or, I change something about that, and then be able to try it in real time. Yeah. That's big.
Jemmy, I think I missed a super chat of yours, $2. You just say, hey, boys, thanks as always for great content. I apologize if I missed that. I feel a little bit like I missed that. But if I didn't,
thanks, man.
Yeah, I absolutely appreciate it. Yeah, it helps the channel out. And, you guys are basically my video game trailer ads that I run in my Game Awards. by doing that. Speaking of that, let's just jump into that discussion. So the Game Awards themselves. Man, I don't know. Like, I definitely have issues with the amount of trailers. You know, it's ridiculous, right? And racing didn't get to stand up. I think action adventure didn't get to come up. They were shuttling people off. But I also do think that he got so much flack. I don't know if you guys remember the old Doritos Pope moment, you know, where he was talking about games and one of the things, and he had the Doritos in the background and Mountain Dew, and people attacked him for it. And we started to get these Game Awards where I think subconsciously everybody makes choices. You know, you're getting the feedback, blah, blah, blah. And I think we can tell Jeff is paying attention because he also said he's dropping world premiere for this one. He was dropping like the big announcement, world premiere. He was like, oh, we're getting away from that, even though they mentioned world premiere a couple times. But it's obvious it changed him. And I think his idea was, okay, we want games trailers because it's about games. So games trailers in our awards make sense. But it shifted to where, let's be honest, I mean, 80% of us do watch it, not because we don't agree with the awards or want to see the awards, we do, but we watch it because there's also some surprise there, and it's the only place. E3 died. It
would be the only reason I would ever be interested in watching it.
Right.
Would be for those trailers.
Yeah, yep. So I actually get it. I get the complaints, and I get absolutely the business sense of what we're doing. But personally, for me, an award should never be not accepted. Any of them. If you're going to do an award, right, it needs to have a person accepting it. If you want to do it pre-recorded, I guess you could, but I don't believe in that either. But it is an awards show. So to me, I would say you're going to have to figure that out, Jeff, because I've had a problem with that forever. I love the trailers. But if you are saying, here's a game award, I mean, I don't know about you guys. They probably know ahead of time that their award that they're up for would not go up on stage. So I'm wondering, do they even go? You know? Like, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
Do they get statuettes?
They do.
Like,
yeah.
They do?
Yeah. I just saw some pretty big titles out there. I mean, or not big titles, big awards. And it was weird to just see so many.
It's also a chance for you to, you know, get up there and put a spotlight to the team, right? I mean, people get to shout out the team and to give a little tidbit about what it was like to make the game. I think those moments are the only moments in the show that I always get emotional, because I really, most times, I really see like the fucking journey, you know, like that person has gone through, because it's usually like a game director or someone who's been deep in the muck making the game, right? And they're now seeing this 4 or 5
years possibly.
Yeah, now they have this tangible award, and they're like, dude, you know, it was, thank you, everybody. You know, you see it in their eyes that there's something there. Like today or yesterday, Sam Lake, the guy from Alan Wake, Remedy. You know, you could he had tears in his eyes, right? It was a beautiful moment. He was having a great time, and whether they're emotional or not, I think it's really cool to give him that small, even if it's short, you know, just get on stage and have your moment of accepting the award. I would love for them to, you know, all the awards for them to be able to do that, even if it's quite quick, or maybe they set it up so there's less, you know, build up or whatever.
Can I just also point out that we have an accessibility award, but we still haven't figured out how to get the accessibility award people up onto the stage? Feels a little bit like we haven't figured out accessibility when it comes to awards. I mean, and I was sitting there watching it going, of all the awards, we've still haven't put a ramp on the steps.
It's just stairs to let somebody, there. Yeah,
it's like, what? I mean, it's so weird that, like, some of the passionate ones or whatever. And by the way, some of the ones I saw, and Abzi even asked this, and it was a pretty smart question. Abzi was like, why are they doing these human library journal moments where they have a person walking at a cafe and they're like, my journey began with, where that's about one person and it's a game that may or may not come out. It's about we get that, but right, you could have handled 3 awards in that amount.
I agree with
maybe
you.
3 is an extent. Maybe 3 is overblown, but you could handle a single award, let's say, in that 3-minute time period. Personally, I would say you're highlighting 5 games in one spot or one person, which is what it's skewing towards. Is this really weird personal journal diary thing? Yeah. So I say replace those minimum. Throw up. They had 3 last night, I think we counted, of those. So you get 3 more awards up. And I don't know what's going on with those. They're almost very social media.
I think
look
they're
at me
trying
kind of things.
They're trying to like empower the independent artists and creators, like they did with
But they didn't have indies come up to accept their award.
No, I hear you. But
sorry.
what was the lady that came on stage and she was speaking either Japanese or some other language?
Mm-hmm. I believe she's the lady who left Ghostwire Tokyo. Yeah,
I think so. Yeah,
a couple.
And she was doing her own thing now.
Yeah.
And she had an incredible artistic trailer that they showed. So that was cool. They highlighted I guess her journey a little bit and going out on her own. I thought that was a cool story. But I agree with you. I think the focus on the individual is a bit odd, rather than the games.
And that's the thing. These are awards, meaning the game has come out and we voted on them. So why are we showing something that somebody might be doing years later and it's one person's thing, or it's this live journal of a person's life? And I know why we are. Some of it is social media and political correctness and all of the stuff that we see now of like everybody matters. Everybody does matter. I don't know if the Game Awards is about that part just by its sheer name.
The forum for it is what you're saying.
Or whether it's the forum for it, yeah. Because I also believe Jeff could do his own. We also have Summer Games Fest or whatever. Doesn't he do that one too? Isn't there another one that Jeff does? And
Gamescom, something like that.
I think there's something in the middle that he does, which I would love to see those. I think that's a good time. But Game Awards is like, these guys worked really hard. You can't walk up onto stage. I don't know why, but that just pisses me off every time it happens. I'm like, dude, these guys are the top 5 that people voted on, and you're not letting them walk up there. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, the accessibility thing is one thing, but I will say about people accepting awards at these shows, I don't think that's necessarily on the awards holder as such, like on the Game Awards, because I mean, even the Academy Awards doesn't pay for room and shelter for the nominees. They have to arrange their own living conditions when they go over to the ceremony. So there is that element. There is sort of that element that to some indie developers who live in Europe or Asia or whatever, there is potentially a significant hurdle in coming over to Los Angeles and attending the awards themselves.
I just feel like I would be, if I was doing combat, doing MMA or whatever, and I won, and then they gave me the award 2 days later, and no one got to see. It seems so weird. It's like
I totally understand where you're coming from,
and I do agree because I believe the Oscars. I know that the Oscars and other major awards do their own side awards too. Like the early, they do stuff early.
They have for smaller categories as well, where they're just off. That isn't part of the.
Here's what
main
bothers
show.
me. Right. Here's what bothers me. The Game Awards isn't big enough to need that fix yet. They've made themselves need the fix because of what they're doing right now. And I don't know the finances of it, and we obviously all know that there's probably some expenses there. But if they don't pay for people to come, it's like your expense would be renting the place. And by the way, Kojima and Jordan Peele talked for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And showed some dudes screaming at the screen. Yeah. And I did see a lot of pushback on that. I don't think there was as much pushback on Matthew McConaughey.
Star power affords you a lot of leeway. Yeah.
It's interesting, man. Yeah, it's interesting. You could do pre-recorded messages.
Like if you're like accepting the Academy Award for like best sound editing, you don't get as much speech time as best actor. So
yeah. SBZ says
you'll get the music cue before the other guy. Yeah.
Before the other guy does, you'll get a 15-second SBZ $2 super chat. But didn't you like Max Payne and Alan Wake dancing? Yes, I love that. I actually think one of the best parts of the show was the celebration of the same thing I felt with Sven at the end when he won. He got so flummoxed at everything that was going on, including being pushed out, that he forgot to say that the Xbox dropped Baldur's Gate at the same time. He said he had one job to do, which was to say that, and he quite literally was so, so whatever. Yeah. But I thought the Max Payne Alan Wake thing was hilariously awesome because it was actually from the game. It makes sense. It was tied in. It wasn't, by the way, I have no issue with the Kojima thing. I'm just saying these are places where it seems like some stuff could have been cut. I really do believe that, like, if you're going to have somebody and you look at it and you're like, okay, all we're going to see is this thing. We're going to see some people talking. Maybe we wait a year and then we announce, they're probably trying to get ahead of leaks, obviously. You want to give, Jordan Peele's people, Kojima's people, at some point stuff may leak, that kind of stuff. But yeah, man.
I'm so happy they make time for music, because very often music becomes like a side thing. People don't really pay attention to it or talk about it, especially in reviews. I mean, Karak, you know this, you've made a name just talking about music and audio and stuff. Beyond the it's bombastic. So to see two full musical performances. No, three, sorry, actually.
Was that three?
Was Hellblade.
Hellblade, Alan Wake,
Final Fantasy, and there were great performances.
There was four, because there was Hellblade, Final Fantasy, Alan Wake, and then at the end there was the full orchestra.
The medley.
Yeah.
In the end, true. Yeah. So that was beautiful performances. Like the Final Fantasy one, I got emotional because it's the characters and everything. So
also,
at least they make time for some good stuff to kind of bring some positivity. They do make time for some celebration and awesome stuff about games.
Yeah, I mean, that's the awards thing, and that's the problem. One's celebration, the other is more of your cerebral, this is what's coming. So you got dopamine and serotonin both trying to be met, and it's like, maybe we should pick an emotion and pick a chemical and stick on that this show.
Hey, at least we didn't get a The Rock appearance.
We did not get a
his
Rock
next movie
appearance. No, we did not. Indio says those bouncers at the end of every aisle were ready to throw down on security. Yeah, there was a bunch of bouncers. They definitely were prepped if anybody tried to jump up. Sarah Mercury, $2 super chat. No Bill Clinton moment this year. There was nothing. No, it was great. It was what they showed was professional and awesome. Even the girl at the starting, what's her name? She's from IGN. She was pretty, they had some goofy jokes. They all did. Then we had the Muppets, which again is another thing that just could have been removed. Have a Muppet give out an award. Whatever. If you need the Muppets in there, but for Christ's sakes, that was a long skit for no real reason. That could have been cut. I'm sorry I can't remember her name. I've actually watched her news stuff. She's on IGN. Damn it. But she did a very good job of just being moving things along. I know there's going to be somebody who doesn't like it. I agree. But in the scale of ones I've seen, because I did just watch a video called the last or the worst 10 presenters at an award show, and I was like, yeah, did a phenomenal job. Yeah, man, I don't know. Oh, Judge's dunk was hilarious. So I did have a Chris Judge bingo card slot too for Chris Judge. I did not know Chris Judge was going to tease the campaign of Mortal Kombat, which caused me to actually laugh out loud. Call of Duty. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Call of Duty. That was hilarious. And I love how he goes, that's another company I'll never work for.
Yeah, that's a bridge burned.
Yeah. See, there's already somebody. Her script was cringe. You haven't seen cringe, my friend. Not even close. I could show you cringe. It's 1 million times worse than anything you saw in that event.
Especially if you've seen years of award ceremonies in general. Yeah.
Oh, dude. Yeah.
I would imagine.
Avatar video games. We're going to talk. That's Johnny. Kigaroos. What's your guys' favorite food or snack? Something that you could eat for days, but that you would go for whenever you don't know what to eat.
So snack, I have my greatest vice is we have a
vice
chocolate candy company here in Denmark called Tops Chocolate. and they make a particular toffee called Tump's Golden Toffee, and it's just like the amount of chewiness that gets is just heaven. Like that, those toffees are.
Do you have to finger poke to get it out of your teeth?
If there's kinda with it, especially with like you can't possibly use your tongue to do it, but so you don't necessarily need the fingers, but yeah. And like if there's a bag of those or even like a box, I'm in trouble because I can't put them down.
That's cool. You don't hear that a lot. You don't hear toffee a lot. What about you, Johnny? You got any super snacks?
Do you guys have Baby Bell cheese? It's those like little round.
Oh yeah, with the wax around them.
But with the wax.
Yeah.
For some reason, I love those things, and something about the wax, it's nostalgic. And I just like. I could eat like a whole bag of those if you let me.
Okay, chat. What's your favorite snack? What's a snack you go to? Mine would be mine changes, but I definitely like cheese balls. I mean, that was a joke for the podcast for the first 5 years we
puff,
ran.
No,
cheese,
what
cheese balls, cheese puffs.
Cheese puffs. Yeah.
Because I have like pictures of me with Reg and Silver and Go Burns.
I can't have them in the house, by the way.
Yeah, no. Well, they don't exist as anything other than a resource being constantly used if they're in my house.
Yeah.
They don't store. They used.
Don't store.
They do not store.
You buy and that bitch is going.
There's no hoarding.
There's no such thing as storing a cheese puffs container here, and so we know that. So it's like when they are purchased, they're eaten almost like.
So you calculate what you buy based on what you're okay eating, like.
Yeah. And apparently my eyes are bigger in my stomach because I bought that 5-gallon drum that one time when we were all here, and they were like, "What the?" And I
remember you had a picture with a giant.
With a giant jug on my head.
Ridiculous.
Indio says Snyder pretzels, Pop-Tarts from M Mac as well. Anthony, string cheese. String cheese is delicious, man. That used to be my thing.
I don't think we have string cheese here. Is it like dry cheese? Like...
It's slightly drier, but it allows for you to eat it by pulling it off in strings. So it looks like a log, a little baby log. It's only like that long.
So you like peel it off or something?
Like a hangnail. The hangnail of cheeses. By the way, I should never said that, but it is like a hangnail. I love eating it though, man. String cheese is so good.
Yeah, cheese is magical.
Twizzlers and Hershey Kisses at the same time.
Interesting.
At the same time, I'm thinking he means. He didn't say or.
Do you guys do like Snickers or?
Yeah, I love
that
Snickers.
Type of chocolate bar.
Chocolate bars, no.
Yeah,
Eric, you like? There was an incident here where for a time they thought they removed the veins on the Snickers. Like the the dick vein. People were revolting. People were revolting. Like, bring back the dick veins.
Yeah, bring back the dick vein, dude.
And they posted on Twitter like, rest assured, the dick vein is still there, or so.
Here's the thing, man. People get behind the weirdest battles to fight, right? Right? Like, if you had told me 25 years ago somebody would complain the dick vein was removed from a Snickers, which I love Snickers, so I know what they're talking about. But it is so fucking weird, man. It's so weird. It's like, what are you doing? What a
weird thing to latch on
to. This is like a Ickers now. It's not even it's not, snick is the sound that you make when you eat it. Like, what's going on? Resmi, who's new to the Discord, thank you very much, by the way. What is an immediate frustration or red flag in a new video game? First impression. Mine would be unnecessary tutorials or long-winded introductions to narrative. Unskippable, dull dialogue.
Oh, dude. Lack of compounding with that, Karak, real quick. Lack of checkpoints, so that if you die, for example, you now have to go through the lengthy cinematic dialogue again.
Man, that's triggering me because I am playing a game for a preview right now next month that has those, and it's not, I don't think, prepared yet, so it's more of a preview. But yeah, I know what you mean. What were you going to say, Silver? You also had one.
The biggest immediate red flag for me is when I boot up the game, do you put me into the main menu, or do you just throw me into the game?
Oh, God.
Without putting me into the main menu.
Always got to be main menu.
Games the last couple of years have really started to just throw you into the game without, particularly Ubisoft games. Like, Ubisoft has really sort of gone into that as a trend for some reason that I don't understand. But particularly if you're a PC gamer, like getting into the menu first to set things up properly is pretty important.
Yeah.
Looking at you, Sean. Sean, I couldn't get into the menu. Sorry.
No, but that's what I was going to say is, let's say you have a PC version, right? And your card, a driver, whatever, you know, it's messed up graphically, or you're just like, dude, why'd you guys not allow me? You go into the INI file, which I've actually seen people have to do. You load up the game, get it to make an INI file, close the game, go into the INI file, change it manually yourself. And to me, that is just absolutely broken. I would also say I'm okay with unskippable cutscenes sometimes if it's good. I sort of like it because then I try to skip it and I'm like, I can't. And I sort of feel like that choice has been taken. I will sit through it, and this will be how I experience it. So.
Particularly egregious, I think, that issue in Max Payne 3 and the flow of that game.
Rockstar, right? Did Max Payne 3?
Yeah.
Max Payne 3 is good as 1 and 2?
I think it's the best gameplay wise, like in terms of like the actual shooting and the actual action. Yes, in those terms, I think it's the best. Like it's one of the best third-person action shooters I've ever played. The Max Payne 3 still, and I'll still go back and play it on the rare occasion. But the other stuff, like particularly the cutscenes, can make it difficult when you've been through them already. Some of them will play for like 20 seconds before you can skip. It's really weirdly implemented.
So somebody here picked mine, which is when you try to pause during a cutscene and it skips the cutscene. And I got to tell you, I don't know why I get so furious, because when a cutscene pops up, you see the fade, and I'm like, oh, this is a good time for me to pause it. I'm going to go. Yeah. I'm going to go pee. I'm going to grab
a leak.
Yeah, I'm going to grab something, let the dogs out and come back. And you hit it, and you know almost right away. There's no soft hold button. You hit the button, and it goes pop, pop, and you're like, no, wait, what? And
or you can't pause even.
You
Give
can't
me
what?
a confirmation
or you can't pause.
at least.
Yeah, or you can't pause during a cutscene. Yeah, which is actually, to me, more important, I think, than skipping it would be pausing it, the ability to pause that cutscene. Yeah. Somebody else said, not when you try to close the game and there's no close to desktop, it's just close to main menu, and then you have to go into the main menu, let it load. Then
and like the Souls games that give you the intro, like the video before.
Oh, right, the video before.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh.
It's like an ad on YouTube when you've seen.
If you
jump between, I've jumped between a couple videos in Twitch. I did this yesterday. I was looking at people playing that zombie game, and I just watched a ad, and I jumped to another one, and I'm like, it's for sure going to track that I just watched an ad, right? And and it was like instantly the same ad, and I was like, that can't. And so I started testing it, and it just ad after ad. I was like,
by the way, Rough Gaming. So just real quick tangent there on that zombie game that you and Nabsy were talking about that came out. It's rough, and it's like overwhelmingly negative. Right
it
now.
Is, but I got to tell you, way less rough than I thought it was going to be.
Not as bad as you thought.
Yeah. No, not as bad, because I thought it was either going to be amazing and everybody's going to be blown away, like, oh my God, which very low chance. But I thought it was going to be unplayable, terrible, trash. And I was watching multiple streamers who, some were smart and they went to servers that were far away, so they didn't get a server queue. And it was funny to hear like Dr. Disrespect, Lyric, and a couple of people being like, dude, this actually might be something if they can fix this and that. And I was like, interesting.
All right.
And I watched them play and I was like, was it anything other than an early access? No. Was it near what they said? No. I mean,
I didn't check the reviews. There might have been some reason for the overwhelming negative.
There were people who were like 0.03 minutes. Yeah. Or 0.1 minute, whatever the lowest time is, and they were like, scam or what. So
I mean, there were a lot of people who were predicting it would be basically a new. I don't know if you guys remember, but back in the day there was a clone of the DayZ, I think called World War C or something. That basically, when it released, it caused Steam to like revise their entire sort of policies for the store windows and everything, because it had basically misled users. And came out as something of a hoax at the time. And I think it even changed its name or rebranded itself subsequently because of how bad the reception had been.
Well, you guys do remember also the ripoff of Ark that was the Pirates one. You guys remember that one? That was a big deal. That was only like two or 3 years ago, and that was also a big deal. Do I think it's good? No, not at all. This new one, but I'm just saying I actually expected it to not only not work, but for people to get in, and it was going to be 100% asset flips. It was going to be, terrible voices. Are the voices great? No, but they're passable. Like I've seen full $60 games like Alekine's Gun with voices that you're like, how did this ever happen? So. Yeah, it was. Yeah,
true. And the city looks cool. It's barren as fuck, but it looks
barren, empty, empty. Yeah, it was empty. I mean, and the alarm. I don't know if you guys saw the thing, but the alarm goes off, and you can hear it 800 miles away, and it was so funny because it was like every person I streamed was at that moment, and it was just no matter where I went, somebody found that alarm, and they were like, "Oh my god, it won't shut up." They were miles away, and it was still in the background. It was more funny than anything. I don't have a problem watching somebody else's discomfort.
True.
Jimmy504 says, the first mods I downloaded are to get rid of intro movies. Yeah, the best way to do intro movie removal for me, if there isn't a mod, is to make a single one-frame AVI video and then go into where the videos are held in your game and replace and rename them so that your one frame
that works?
Dude, it works perfect. I do it with so many games.
Can you put like a porn clip in there?
You can put anything you wanted. Clip? Yeah, you can put anything you wanted.
So like Dark Souls and it's like Jenna Jameson.
Yeah, but what you do is you just get like anything, and you just do 1 second of a movie, and it has to be the same call, and then you make sure that it's named the same. Delete the original or rename the original if you don't think it'll work. And I don't know if I've ever run into one that doesn't work, and it just plays. So
I should do that on stream.
Yeah,
and
so
just surprise people.
Logos will be like start of the game, and it's really nice. Takes just a couple seconds too because you use the same file for all of them. Choose a one frame, kilobyte file, and you just replace them.
Just to correct myself, the game I was referring to was the War Set, not World War Set.
The War Set.
I mean, World War Set is built on the movie, and the 4-player co-op shooter.
Right.
The War Set. Mm-hmm. The War Set was the DayZ or Daysat clone.
Mm-hmm.
Novotic, I think I got that right, says, what is the game highlight showings for you guys at the events? Sega, maybe. Looking at the names of the games that I grabbed trailers for, there was a lot of very good ones. But I would say Sega was probably my most, it was exciting to see. Blade was pretty high.
There was an announcement for a sequel to The Case of the Golden Idol.
Oh, that's the one you were talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is that?
That was a detective game from last year.
Mm-hmm.
That's really good. One of the better detective games out there. You basically solve murders with by connecting clues and stuff. And it looked to be more of the same with the trailer. I mean, it didn't show any gameplay, but it did show connecting the threads and connecting the dots of like the mystery on a whiteboard. So
you're into the old mystery games. Well, I think we both are, but they don't hit very often, do they? Like they just don't. Like
they can be very hit and miss. Yeah.
Yeah.
But Case of the Golden Idol is one of the better ones. It's also quite funny in places. It's very competent in terms of political science knowledge. So there are a lot of references there that are pretty clever and a little hidden, but they're appreciated.
Jemmy had said the last Sentinel trailer was really awesome. Yeah, there was a bunch of. I mean, it was definitely one of the best. That's the problem, is because I have problems with the awards show itself, but it was also one of the best for announcements, new announcements. Things
I think Exodus was a really exciting.
Yeah.
If you talk about stuff we didn't know.
Absolutely.
At least, widely.
No, I don't know of anybody who knew exactly that. I mean, you hear the rumors about somebody possibly popping in, but
yeah, I had no idea. So when I saw McConaughey, I was like, "Oh shit!"
Yeah.
Okay,
dude,
it's pretty cool.
It was cool because also they showed the game. They showed stuff for it. So it wasn't that here's a star talking.
No, it's not the teaser. Yeah.
Jeff Bozeman, $5 super chat. Thank you very much, Jeff. We appreciate it. I would. Somebody else just mentioned. I was just going to say I wanted to mention one takedown I was excited for, which was Jurassic Park Survival. So I don't know about you guys.
Trespasser reboot.
Right.
Basically.
I can't even tell what it is, though, because at times I noticed that the character was only moving forward and backwards. So I was like, is this a runner that's all about surviving consistently being attacked? But then they said survival. So Jurassic Park survival game could be amazing if you have to make, a base or whatever. It's just one character. I actually think that could be very cool, but they didn't show a lot. There was... Yeah,
I mean, even Trespasser, despite its issues, had its moments.
Yeah. But Jurassic Park is a good IP, too. I mean, you can do a lot with Jurassic Park. We've seen it with the Tycoon-style games, Jurassic Park Tycoon or whatever it's called. So I like the overall IP. Petty Man says, thoughts on Sean Murray's new Earth-sized multiplayer game? We did give that at the starting. What would you like to see, though? Is there anything that we want to see in the Sean Murray game? That's actually a good point, because I don't think I actually really stated what I want to see. It was more what I thought we weren't seeing or what we were seeing. Is there something that you would want to see from that?
Yeah, I think just what I touched on, like an untouched world, that's yours to sort of leave your mark on and explore, and obviously flora and fauna. I would want to be part of it, like not just empty and dead.
Yeah. Luckily, it looks like those are going to hit. It looks. Cross my fingers, but it looks.
Johnny, I really want to see the ability to have private worlds.
Keep talking about my dog.
And not only that, but like, I don't know how you call it technically, but the serverized option where you can have your world up at all times, like how Minecraft does it, where the world is just up and people can come in and out and play. You don't need the host to be there.
Kind of thing.
Like a dedicated instance, whether it's paid for or whatever, or maybe people run it on their machine. But I think that would make a huge difference, because like we were talking about before, imagine if we have, the ACG people and they're all building towards the same thing. It would be amazing if this is just happening and, Joe Bob after work logs in for a couple hours, you log in at your hours, and it's all, happening.
I personally feel like what they showed is pretty much what I wanted from it. And then if we go past that, I'm just going to be happy. What he stated seems very doable. And I think your point, Johnny, about combat is the most important. So even more important than dedicated. And the reason why is because dedicated would make a good game better, but combat will make a good game bad. So what I'm worried about is that we get into that thing, and No Man's Sky has this problem in spades. Whenever there's any kind of combat, ship combat's okay, but whenever you're on the ground, you're fighting the Sentinels or whatever, you're just like, oh my god, it just feels like trash.
Immediately gone,
dude. It's gone. It's gone. I can't tell you, Johnny, how much I'm a coward. I run away from everything because I'm like, I just don't even want to deal with this.
Anytime you're interacting with the Sentinels, it's a low point.
Yeah, you can turn them off, luckily, now. Obviously they figured it out. Yeah. But I think with the fantasy world, they showed some combat, little bits. They showed them chopping trees, swimming underwater, showed them riding horses, dragons. If I remember right, there were some skeletons somewhere, which is going to be your trash mob kind of thing, I hope. But I also, I guess the one thing I would want to see is how is resource management going to refresh or not refresh? If it doesn't refresh, it's going to feel different. That's important. Yeah.
The other thing that's important too is sort of logistics. Are we chopping trees the whole game? Or is there some type of evolution where at some point we can stop chopping trees and have some type of system to get wood, right?
Right. Yeah.
Whether it's some machinery or whatever. And then
logging
also
mill, build a basic logging mill.
Can we transport resources? I mean, we have a dragon, but the dragon is not going to ferry our wood to base number 2.
You have a fantasy fire-breathing dragon, and you're like, fetch wood for me, pissant.
Yeah, like So yeah, there's some stuff there that kind of needs to be thought about.
Yeah, and somebody else was saying a good story or how they're going to do the story. I think the story thing for me is probably I'm okay with it being based around bad guys, and the world being rough and you having to stay alive versus needing
just a pure
big
survival
story.
Sandbox.
I mean, a story would be great, but did you guys notice that he used the same overall design in the one giant with it looked just like the circlet thing from the aliens in No Man's Sky. So I'm wondering if you're still gathering data about the ancients, but instead of aliens, it's the ancient gods on this earth.
Yeah.
Because it stood up and you see the sort of the same style. I like that idea. I mean, actually, I think that could be cool if there's a little tie-in there. Just not real, but a mental tie-in to it. But yeah, I'm looking at it now, man. Yeah, there's a bunch of zombies. Not zombies, I'm sorry. There's a bunch of skeletons. Unexplored Earth. All footage in-game multiplayer. They don't say what system, so I'm assuming PC, right? I mean, we'll always assume PC with 24090s and unlimited RAM. Unlimited cache. Water looks sweet when he comes up out of the water. Dude.
Yep.
Okay, let's talk about something important. This just popped into my head. It's the most important question ever. Dude, this is so important. Okay. Starfield, No Man's Sky. No Man's Sky comes out. It's got problems. Starfield's announced and it's being built. No Man's Sky continually improves itself. Starfield comes out, feels old. Is it possible that a game like this steals Elder Scrolls in the same way? Do you think Bethesda is sort of stuck in their style of game, and what we see here? I'm not saying supplants it or whatever. I'm not saying like completely replaces it, but does the same sort of end around where we see, because Elder Scrolls they said is way out, right? Elder Scrolls we're still going to wait. Let's say 4 or 5 years. If this comes out in 2 years and it even somewhat has sort of the same feel, it could be weird to be a developer going into a world where this exists. Because imagine what it was like going into a world where No Man's Sky originally seems like like it's got its own problems, and then they just keep iterating and getting better and putting more in. I don't know. I'm just thinking what it would be like to be a developer. I wonder what they thought when they saw it. Because there's a part where you come out of the water in this trailer, and it looked like Elder Scrolls, that one that Silver and I talked about, that first little trailer we saw.
I think
it would just, I don't know, be interesting.
I don't think the risk is as big.
You don't think so?
As we saw with Starfield for a number of reasons. I think the primary one is that Elder Scrolls is already an established IP. Starfield was not. So Elder Scrolls already has established lore.
True that.
Through its previous games and the like MMO and stuff that people are significantly invested in. So I think that's going to buy it a certain audience. That wasn't going to necessarily go for Starfield as an original IP.
It's so interesting too, because especially when you personally to me, sometimes you get these weird comparisons, that don't sort of met out. But depending on how this game goes, and depending on how Elder Scrolls goes, and in 5 years, right? It's a long time. I just wonder how many ideas.
2027 was the last one I heard.
2027
yeah.
Well, then that's not too bad. That's not as far out as we got with No Man's Sky in this one. But you always get comparisons. We had it with Starfield. You have it with everything. There'll always be a comparison. I mean, shit. I compared Avatar to Just Cause for a second. So it's like, they can be completely divergent and you'll still find similarities somewhere. But yeah, I was just wondering, because you sort of mentioned something. The MMO is great for Elder Scrolls. It's great.
Right.
And then Skyrim's great. People love that. And yet you can't play 2 games at once. And so I guess I'm just trying to think, if they add the stuff Johnny wants added in, I could see a lot of people reverting to a game like this versus I'm just thinking maybe more of myself. I might do that. But I think that's because I don't like Elder Scrolls story. Yeah. I feel like Elder Scrolls has no story. I don't know why,
I'm not a huge advocate for Elder Scrolls lore either, but there is a significant contingent of fans.
There are. I can't figure out why. I can't figure out in any way, shape, or form why, but there is. Let's see. Elder Scrolls Online has also been adding and expanding lore since 2014. Yeah, that's. I don't think they'll cannibalize each other too much, but there's, like Silver said, they're invested in it. So yeah, you'll definitely have a sort of a discussion around. Do you want to jump? I think a lot of people will jump. Also, do we think it'll be co-op? I don't think Elder Scrolls will be co-op. I think that'll be just be full single player.
I couldn't imagine it would be.
Yeah.
Another thing is, what are we going to see them do? Like, what are we going to see them?
You might see mods that make it co-op.
Yeah, true.
Didn't we see that for some of the Elder Scrolls games?
They've tried multiple times. They've got like patrons for co-op for Skyrim, and they've had issues with
play together.
Yeah,
something.
Yeah, it's never really come up. It's very. I mean, talk about what would be hard, right? It seems like that would be, insanely difficult. But there's been videos that they posted where they are playing together, but I just haven't heard much about, I haven't heard any final release thing. If anybody has in chat, if you've heard of a final release thing for co-op in Fallout would be good. I had also heard that there was a plan for something to do with Fallout, so it looks like it probably turned out to be the TV show. I was hoping for a remaster because the FTC leaked that Fallout 3 was getting a remaster or a remake, whatever. I would love to see that. Personally,
you could arguably do co-op in Fallout 76, right?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, that's in Fallout 76, another game that's improved dramatically too. Fallout 76 is like not even the same game anymore. Isn't it weird too that we could sit here and talk about like 40 games that have slowly encroached insane popularity?
Because games are no longer done at release.
Exactly.
They get continued content for better or worse.
Sea of Thieves just got the private servers.
Yes.
And then Grounded is huge.
Which is also, I mean, we did finally get a massive trailer for Skull and Bones.
See, we did.
Well.
Yeah, we did. Yep, we did.
So we did finally get to see it. And I just think at this point, I mean, what Sea of Thieves released 5 years ago now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like 2018, I think it was. Was it? Or was it 2017?
I reviewed, that was a Never Touch, one of the rare ones. That would have been 2017. 2017, I think. Let me check. Continue talking. I'll look. I'll find the original date.
But I mean, it's already been out for 5 or 6 years. And built on that. I think it's going to be very, very difficult for Skull and Bones to get
traction.
True.
To get traction or get anywhere in that market. With Sea of Thieves there. I mean, that's going to be huge overcoming that, I think.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Novik, $5 super chat. If anything, Starfield reception will be a probable wake-up call for things that could possibly change. Yeah, that's what I believe, too. I absolutely believe that not only will it be a wake-up call, but they've got a ton of players. Like, they're in no... there's the success of Starfield may not be Skyrim's success, but it's a success beyond any other... it's ridiculous. So it's like, some of the stuff they might not change, and they'll just be like, this is the way we do things. But I think a lot of the stuff, the seamless stuff, will be added in all these other games. I don't think they're ever going to have... They're going to have to fix their engine so that it does the sort of seamless transitions between things.
Yeah.
Seamless transitions for space.
Yeah, that seems to be one of the big complaints from people.
It's so weird, guys, because the longest time we've been doing this, Star Citizen was already announced and had betas when we started the podcast.
Yes.
And the discussions around Scam continued for 5 years, let's say. I mean, dude, 5-6 years ago for Sea of Thieves. That's nuts. Yeah. That is nuts. And it still looks amazing. Music or the water in that game.
Yeah.
It's just insane.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, and I got to shout out Grounded, man, because we got a bunch of people in our Discord who play Grounded, and I consistently get invited, and I always turn it down because I don't know why. It just isn't my thing. But when I was watching Co stream it a year or two ago, and I was talking to him, and I was like, dude, is it as good as it seems when you're playing? Like, is it that improved? And he's like, yeah, man, it's actually quite improved. Like, it's got a big audience, too.
I liked it a lot.
Did you? Did you like Grounded a lot?
Yeah, I beat that game. I played with some friends. It was a fantastic multiplayer game.
Damn, I didn't know you beat it. Yeah. I didn't even know you could beat that game. I guess in my brain, I didn't
it's got like a story in it that you follow.
Really?
It's like, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, but you're the kids. So you're trying to save yourself.
Oh, I wasn't even aware there was a full story in it. I bet you I played that part of it, but I think I thought it was more of here's an introduction.
Maybe you
to the
even
game.
played it like early where it didn't really have much of the story done.
Yeah, it's possible. What else do we got for discussion points? Johnny had put in something, but I think we discussed those. Avatar, best flying in
I
the
think
game.
we covered it mostly. A couple things from the show that we didn't touch on that I thought were interesting.
Touch away.
Windblown. Windblown, a game from the creators of Dead Cells, which I loved very much.
Mm-hmm.
It was the first trailer they showed. It was full just animation mostly, and some gameplay. But I thought that looked really cool. I liked it a lot. And then let me see. The Lego Fortnite stuff. I wanted to bring that up because you guys know I hate Fortnite. I'm not a fan at all. But the Lego stuff looked really cool.
It's beyond ridiculous. I don't even know what to say because it does.
I kind of want to play it. It's.
We talked about that in the podcast during the event when they showed it. And I was like, listen, it's ballsy for them to release those in-game and just be like, here's a racing game or here's a Lego game, blah, blah, blah. And you're just like, what? And have it actually look like it would be something I would want to in any way, shape, or form experience. Because the main Fortnite is so beyond my desire to play. It's negative desire to play. But you're right, man.
But what they've built from that,
Yeah, dude. I mean, you can hate them all you want. And remember, they started out with the single player, then they went to the build battle, and now the single player's back. Like, it's evolved. Speaking of that, I wonder when Fortnite came out. I feel like Fortnite's even older than that.
Damn.
No, that would be 20. I think that was 2017.
Was that 2017? Wild One says, "Did you play Avatar with no HUD?" Yeah, I played with the HUD to do some testing, but once I figured out, and I think Silver said he did the same. Once I figured out sort of what was missing so Ubisoft games, let me warn people about Ubisoft games when I always talk about no HUD, and Silver does too. Like, we're no HUD freaks. It's an amazing way to experience a game. However, Ubisoft's the only company I've ever seen where sometimes if you turn off the HUD, it will not allow you to interact with items in the game world in some places. And it will be very difficult to play the game with the full HUD off, or you'll find yourself going, what? I would say Avatar does not do that.
I haven't experienced that. No.
I haven't experienced it, yeah.
I have it, like, there are some quests where they're really bad at directing you. Like, I had one quest that was literally just, my direction was go to Gossamer Lakes. And when you haven't explored the map, you don't get location names. So I had no idea where the hell is Gossamer Lakes. You just tell me, go to Gossamer Lakes. Is it to the west? Is it to the north, east, south? You need to give me some form of direction here. Just go to Gossamer Lakes. But I hadn't explored Gossamer Lakes at that point, so I didn't have the place name for it. So I didn't on the map. So I didn't know where to go. Now most quests will give you a direction, like go to the northeast of this location, go to the southeast here, or
I definitely remember those.
So, but there are exceptions.
Yeah, no HUD is one of the best examples of how to get into Primal for me. No HUD was probably one of the biggest game changers for how that game felt. But I would suggest if anybody gets a chance is to just check out by turning off. Ubisoft's very good, some other companies do, at turning off the occasional HUD element, and then play the game, because the game will sort of inform you what data they're going to give you. And what they should have done in this game, for example, is if they say go to Gossamer Lakes or whatever, they should have a trigger that says Silver's got his HUD off. Make sure that this character barks out occasionally. Have you ever gone to Shimmering Lakes?
That would be perfect.
Right?
Yes.
It would have been perfect because your HUD is off, so that would have actually triggered you to listen to. And
just have a character say go to the west. Yeah.
Yep. But no HUD is beyond, guys, I'm telling you, man, Assassin's Creed no HUD, they've got a couple issues too. I've definitely had interaction problems with no HUD for them. I think it's because they trigger on the visual. And there's something about sometimes you'll go to something, you'll be like, what the hell? And then you turn it on, and it works when it's turned on. But when it's turned off, I've had it not work. Origins, I definitely had that. But I would say if you guys are playing a game and there's too much information or it feels gamey, turn off a couple HUD elements. And
the HUD in Avatar is already pretty minimal, actually.
Yeah, it's pretty.
I was going to bring that up. Yeah,
there isn't even a minimap by default.
Right. No minimap by default. Yeah, so that is true. It's pretty minimal. They do a good job also, like you said, some quests they will be like to the north of the main clan's hut or the main clan's tree is this place you need to go. And instead of naming it, I think naming it is the biggest problem. Yeah, focused. If you say go to the Crystal Caves or whatever, and you're like, dude, I have no clue where the Crystal Caves are. But even
stuff like when you're picking up plants, like the mini game you have to do, instead of showing you a HUD for it, they have a small thing where press
it's a little baby
this
meter.
Button. Yeah, press this button if you want to see the HUD or if you want to see the controls. And if you don't press it, it's out of sight. It's very small. So even when you're interacting with stuff, you don't have any HUD. I think you have the compass, right? That's about it for the default, and maybe one other thing.
I would tell you, like Breakpoint. Somebody just said. I was just going to say Wildlands Breakpoint. Breakpoint I don't like nearly as much as Wildlands, but Breakpoint with minimal or no HUD is much better than with a HUD. I don't know. You guys should just try it. If you haven't tried it, I'm not lying. Almost everybody in our podcast has tried no HUD, and I think other than Reg, likes it better. Unless there's a time crunch, and that's happened to me. I've been playing no HUD and been like, I need to find where this quest is, It
also actually teaches you navigational skills that are useful for real life.
Yeah,
for getting around. Like what happens when you actually go to an area you haven't been to in real life, like a new on a vacation or something, and you start to learn to navigate that space. You start to learn by landmarks. Oh, there's that storefront I know. There's that corner, there's that church, whatever. Rather than you're looking down at the little mini map in the lower right corner.
I'm telling you, Primal, I could tell you every corner of every forest, what animals might be there. That was one of the best experiences with no HUD. Coming around a corner and being like, I know around this corner, there's an alligator, or there are alligators in this creek where there weren't any, and you hit a hill and you know what's over the next hill. Exactly, because your brain is cueing on to looking. And then it's so fun because, I don't know about you guys, but if I'm quest given 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I usually just go 1, 2, 3, and I'm still looking. But when you play no HUD, I've been in battles where I know that I knew there was a hill over this hill that I could hide on. Maybe if I had had a quest marker, I would have.
Like, the terrain.
Yeah, the terrain. It's. Man, I can't speak about it any more glowingly. Like, you guys, definitely people should try it. Ghost of Tsushima did a good job of minimizing a couple things because of the wind, right? Yeah. Ghost did a good job with that. I still have an issue with the combat, but the rock paper scissors.
Not a fan.
I'm not a fan of that, but I think it's because that was so freeform for exploration that I thought it would be a little bit more freeform with that. That's why I want Ghost of Tsushima on PC, because I believe the first mod will be a randomizer for enemies, so you don't go into a fight and go, I know I need to do ox stance. I can't even remember the stances, but ox stance with this guy, blah blah blah. Instead, you might go in and it might be all archers, and you're like, oh shit, I gotta do a completely different style here. Does Avatar have no HUD? Yeah. Yep. It's called, is it off or minimal? It's off.
Well, you can Avatar, just switch off individual functions. I've switched off pretty much everything except for the objective in the top left. That I still have, so I know somewhat where to go, what to do. But other than that, and I could turn that off as well.
Yeah, and you can turn that off as well. Especially
and that's only when you press, right?
No, that's up there consistently, actually, which does bother me a bit at times. But the game is honestly so large that I'm looking everywhere else other than the upper left, so that doesn't really. It's not that bad.
They even did it smart. I don't know if you guys. I'm sure you've noticed this, so I don't know why I said it. I don't know if you guys did. But one of the greatest things about Avatar was I was running over that first stump, and it has the powder that makes you go faster, and they put them on those, so instead of going slow up those, you're like busting ass up those. Oh, dude, it's the smartest design idea for some of the foliage. And if you watch the behind the scenes, they had to take biomechanic, or so they had to mix animal and plant DNA, which is what Avatar's about, and they had to go to talk to the Avatar guys, and they had to get all this science for stuff. And so the idea that some plants give off different amounts of things if it's raining, like there is some crazy ass stuff going on in that game. But it's
and the plants are trying to kill you, just like the
plants
animals.
are trying to kill you. Yeah, the one electric plant. The first time I saw the electric plant, I see those sentinels is what I call them, the pods.
Right. Yeah.
And that's why in the review I said I had to try, because it was my first experience with these pods, and I was like, I got to punch these. They look like they're warning me, but it's like we got to test that out. Then you'll get into places with 2 or 3 of those, and you sort of have to because health is not. It's easy, but it's not recharging
It runs
in the same.
No,
same way.
the recharge runs in the energy system, which honestly I wasn't much of a fan of, but it doesn't
pay off, does it?
I've switched off the health and energy meters, so I don't know, and so it's just either there or it isn't. I don't really care.
Yeah.
If I get really wounded, I'll use a health item,
right?
And that's it.
Yeah. A fan says no Fallout 4 upgraded version news. No, unfortunately, I would assume Microsoft and all these guys are probably going to make sure to do their own events for a lot of these things. I just think they're going to stick with that. I heard there's no Easter eggs to find. There are for sure Easter eggs to find, but they're not. So, see, I don't know what gamers are talking about half the time. So I don't know what an Easter egg means to one person. But is there special things to find? Yes. And are there notes or occasional, what would you call them? MP3s, files, where somebody's dying? That doesn't happen, luckily.
Some lore.
But yeah, there's lore. Yeah. There's lore and stuff. And then there's definitely some special bosses. What were you going to say, Silver?
And I see someone asking about the variety of activities and whether it's just the hunter-gathering stuff that used to be that was in the Far Cry games. And like we touched on, the hunter-gathering stuff is so much better because you don't have to collect 500 of each resource. You just have to collect like a couple. So you don't have to go chasing down every single resource and extracting every single resource. You'll just wait for the right ones under the right circumstances. And there are some really engaging activities, I would say, like you can find wounded animals that have been sort of hit with a dart that you can then sort of slowly approach and heal awesome. Them. That feels really nice to do that, and when watch them run off. There's just a really fun way that the entire ecosystem works and the way you tie into it. Especially with some of the ladder skills you'll unlock in the skill tree as well, like some of the ultimate skills. It really ties into that sense of like interconnectedness in Pandora and Awa and whatever, like the cycle there. Although I do still find it really silly that you have to say that prayer when you kill something in order for it to return to the cycle, because I mean it's not like the viper wolves are saying the prayers
right
when they're killing prey, and that prey is ostensibly returning to the cycle as well. So yeah, but
I think in the review, I can't remember exactly what I said, but I do find it to be a pretty perfect pyramid of content across exploration, and then hunter-gatherer, which I was not expecting it to be as weighty as exploration. But the combat, it's almost like the triangle changes shape, and the combat part moves up and down depending on like where you are, and so it can get really lean for combat.
Yeah.
And then what I found was a lot of the combats I got into were either the smaller engagements or big ones. Sometimes the mines were okay, but there's a couple massive outposts, and they were.
I had a base where there were like 10 or 15 of those mechs.
Yeah, that's what it's probably the same base. Yeah, that I saw. And dude, I came over a cliff and I did my Na'vi vision, or Na'vi, and I'm like, oh, and it's just mechs and dudes, and I was like, whoa, that's not what because outposts in Far Cry are usually 15 guys in a small. With some houses.
Yeah.
And this is like, when you do get combat, it's a thought process. Because I got to tell you guys, I don't think I ever shirk from a combat in Far Cry. Ever. So I'll see an outpost, and if my brain is like, let's shoot some people up, I go straight for it. There were multiple times where I'd look and go, what do I have in my inventory? Oh, shit. I don't have this item. I got to go grab a milkweed plant, whatever the fuck this thing is over here, and like jelk it to get it all over my arrow so that I can then go and shoot these guys faster. And I thought that was cool because it actually made me think. That I think I know one of the bases at least you're talking about. It was pretty in depth in what I had to do. It was not only take them out, but I had to like destroy one thing, destroy another thing, go up to the roof, turn a panel to short circuit something, and then I got attacked when I did that as well. So by gyrocopters. I would say, I don't know if you agree. I think the on the back dragon fights that you do against those gyrocopter, they don't have the kineticism I was hoping for. They work, and you're fighting them, you're shooting them through the window, you're arrowing them, but I don't know, man. I felt like they didn't challenge
pretty good
me.
To me, yeah.
Did they? Because they weren't challenging me enough.
No, that's fair. Like they weren't engaging in a difficulty sense. They were engaging in a moment to moment sense, I guess, of what you're doing. Not so much that it feels difficult or you're overcoming the odds, but just
Well, and you do have a pretty wicked gun too. I mean, that gun is not a weakling gun either. So
no, it's also funny they call it a bow and arrows because you're basically shooting spears. Or
as I call them, baseball bats, because you're 8 feet tall. So you're basically shooting somebody with a Louisville Slugger that's slightly sharpened. Yeah. Dude, and when you punch somebody down, man, come up sneaking behind somebody in the base. I snuck under there was a bulldozer, and I snuck under, and because sneaking does work. Like he said, you can't sneak up and do a action combat move.
Takedown, no.
So once I had learned that, I got behind the guy, and I shot him in the leg, and the weight of the arrow, he's like, woof! And I was like, "Oh, dude, that was satisfying." That's awesome. Like that was, It was,
or when you like drop kick them with the drop kick skill from above.
Yes, when you get the ancestor skill, or when you pull them out of the mech. It was great because I saw Fighting Cowboy has done some streaming of it, and he was tweeting, going, "Holy crap, this is way better than like I ever expected. Like it's actually working out to feel like something unique." And that's why I felt. I get why some people didn't like it. And
stealthing the outposts can be pretty fun. You get. To take out the outpost, as Karak touched on, you have to sabotage some objectives in each one. And you do actually get the option, you get like a hacker tool, so you can sneak in and you can hack the objectives, and then you can sort of store the hacks. So you go and you hack every single objective without getting detected, then you can detonate them all at once and just take out the entire base without anybody, with one push, which feels really satisfying.
Also noticed when they did cutscenes, you know how you take out bases in Far Cry, and they always do the music, like Far Cry 5 will be like, bang, 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 bang. It's got the little banjo, and they show people coming back in. I did like that this one has a pretty quick one. And so when it does happen, because it also didn't trigger on a couple bases I took over. It was just they were done, and it gave me, you have finished, and I'm standing in the empty base, and it didn't do a cutscene. I actually sort of relished that, because when you do it a lot, you get accustomed to it. That's the other thing about the game.
And the area also doesn't immediately transform.
Right. The corrupted landscape does not immediately transform.
So like you leave and then you come back, and then everything's sort of become overgrown again.
Yeah, it's an interesting game, man. I think that what's even more interesting, again, is that the Far Cry engine will be on this. And I got to tell you guys, I was really disappointed in 6's look. I thought 6 had a lot of graphical anomalies that just made it look uglier than I ever expected. I think 5 looks pretty good, but it's still got some. But when you look at, I just looked at 5, primo footage of 5, because I still have my footage of that review. And I'm watching 5, and then I open up and look at Avatar, and I'm like, what the shit? Like, it is like, it feels like 3 gens newer. And so that excites me. Like, what is the foliage going to look like? And remember, we have places where there's no
also really cool that
either.
The foliage actually
moves,
accelerates you when you fall from above. Yeah, and you can use it to break your fall.
To stop. Yeah, isn't that great?
Yeah.
Did you find that on accident?
No. They actually there was a quest giver who specifically told me, oh, you can use the leaves to break your fall from because I had to go downhill from like a cliff, and so she told me, oh, just use the leaves to drop.
Oh, gotcha. Because I found it on accident and caught the last leaf in my brain. I saw the last leaf, and I was like, can I? And it did. I died, but it still caught me enough, and I noticed I slowed down, right before
Right.
dying. But I was like, oh shit, you can do that. Yeah, it was awesome. It's great. I mean, again, I know the scores aren't the greatest, but there's something there, man, that I think technology-wise minimum, and then also idea-wise.
I agree. And just the last thing there is how everything is pretty cohesive with the narrative they're trying to sell, which is nature reclaiming, right?
Yeah.
The land, and you being respectful of the resources of the land. That directly ties into how few resources you're picking
Yes.
up. You're basically picking up what you need instead of like hoarding,
Exactly.
resources like we do in so many games, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yep.
Like you would pick up
and murdering
50
every animal you
milkweeds.
see. Yeah.
Yeah, you're talking about milkweeds, dude. I would pick up 50. I would stack up on milkweeds, but here it's like no, you can only pick up what you need, and you're always picking up on the go.
Man, that's interesting you mentioned that, because
Yeah.
that is, I found myself not killing animals randomly, which I definitely did to collect their skins and stuff in the other Far Cry games. And I just
100%.
realized what you said.
You respect.
I did, and I buy into. I have no issue buying into a story. The story was you're a character who's more in the forest, so it's like okay, whatever, I'll play that way. But I actually found myself playing that way also because the game supported the narrative.
Yeah,
Like the game's narrative supports it, even in the movement of the character and all that stuff. It sort of supports it all to make you
it incentivizes it.
Yeah, it makes you. I mean, the best part of this is when you get your dragon. I'm not going to spoil it for anybody. You've already heard about it and seen it, but it's like the climb to get the dragon is one of the best parts I've seen in a game, because
it's like the music for it as well.
The music, the narrative, the way
score.
you do it, all the moves you have to use to get there, so that when you finally do get there, you feel like, oh man, like that was like a mile up in the air that I had to go. It was ridiculous. It's like how far.
That reminds me. There's actually a funny little touch in the game. I don't know if you've noticed, but if you try to stand up, when you're in a crouched section, you will bump your head on the ceiling.
Oh, will you? No,
I did see that. That's funny.
Do you make a sound, or do you just like boop, boop? Oh, yeah, dude, I didn't notice that. That's awesome. That's sweet, man. I love any of those kind of things. Like,
so you can just give your character like permanent brain damage, just boom, 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 boom.
And I got to tell you, there's two reasons why I'm excited for this. One, Star Wars, and what this shows for our Star Wars game. But two, the next Division, because Division has always in my head been solidly cities. Even when they show small jungle bits and small bits of forest when you're in some park area. But the idea I was talking about in Discord last night is like, listen, it's obvious that they can make worlds that are way bigger than we expect, far bigger than Division 1 and 2, just by looking at size-based. But it's like, imagine a game where they can now have a city and then these massive, forested areas outside of it. What about a real post-apocalyptic? What if Division 3 says, fuck it, we're not just going to a different place. We're going to go in the future by 15 years, where it's more like a post-apocalyptic, where ferns and shit have grown up. They can do that because this is that engine. And to me, that's the most exciting, not the most exciting, but it's very exciting to see it and go, wow, they can actually, like, by what I'm looking at, there's no problem with them doing that. And that to me means, what's Division 3 going to look like? And because I like the Division games, and I have no issue admitting that. I like them a lot. The idea of having a much larger world, a city, and as well as like forested areas, Pacific Northwest, what have you, like that could be crazy, man. We can see some awesome stuff. Before we wrap it up, first, thanks. I just got 5 new patrons. I saw you guys jump in from here, as well as some members. I appreciate it, guys. Thanks for supporting the channel. Before we wrap it up, let's go with any questions. Anything that's popped up this week? GTA 5 I thought looked really good. The trailer looked really good. GTA 6. I will get that right.
Okay, Karak, fact check me on this. Did I predict that we were going to have a romantic
You
duo
predicted that. I predicted the 2 names from American history. The guy and the girl.
Bonnie and Clyde.
Bonnie and Clyde, yeah.
There we go.
Yep.
Yeah, because I'm super excited for that. I think that's going to enrich the plot, the complexity of the relationship in there, in the middle.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Like, to be honest, I did, especially from what we've seen, I did think that they were going to either be brother and sister, maybe. But there's definitely a relationship there because there has to be. That's how GTA works. But there were two things I noticed. One, the relationship part, obviously, but also she's the leader. If you see it in all the cutscenes, she's kicking the door down. She's leading him. She's telling him, "Trust me." She's got the jorts, not pants. She's wearing jorts. Yeah. That's the other thing I noticed in GTA 6 or in Florida. They love their jorts. But anyway, like 6 characters are wearing them. The other thing I noticed, especially when you look at the TikTok stuff, is I absolutely believe they're going to have that be a main part of the game. Like a huge part, whether it be collecting, followers, what have you. But it seems like they're definitely going in the social media,
maybe
teasing
it's
the
going
social media.
In the vein of Oliver Stone's like Natural Born Killers.
That's what I think. Yeah,
Right.
but I do wonder. Do you think so? That's the dichotomy. If you're supposed to care about them and they're out there murdering everybody, just for them to like, it's going to be an interesting story to figure out how like.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not like the protagonists of GTA 5 were particularly likable either.
No, they weren't, but they were also 3 guys that had already killed or were living in weird... This one, I don't know enough yet about her and him to know... Because he seems fairly docile, if that makes sense. And I don't mean docile in a bad way. Yeah. I mean, normal. If that, like, he's just like...
It kind of seems like he loved... Okay, this is my projection or my picture in my mind, right? It's like he loves her. He's doing what he thinks he has to do to be a part of her
life
journey, her life, and he's going along with all the crazy stuff that she wants to do because that's who she is.
Dude, Johnny, so there's 2 things that I think may happen, and I was telling Absy this on the Wednesday podcast. The first one I think could happen is that he's telling the story, and at the very end he goes against her. Because she's been in prison already once. She's talking to her case manager.
It's a big part of GTA.
Is that going to be it? Or, as somebody else mentioned, are they telling it in reverse? In reverse order? Is the trailer in reverse order? And she starts in prison, in somewhere, or does she end in prison? And that's where she, we don't know. But there's all these little idiosyncrasies with the story that could really play out. It's going to be, dude, I'm excited for it. I mean, graphically, 30 FPS. I mean, I think now we've had technical channels look at it and state that. I know I got about a quarter of the way through Digital Foundry's last night. I hadn't got a chance to see it, but it sounds like they agree that it's not 4K. Looks like they got some upscaling, which I think is awesome. 30 FPS, I'm going to be fine with this game. I'd love 60, but on these consoles, you're looking at the next gen for probably doing that. But it looks, dude, the graphics, ray tracings exist. The NPC variety seems high.
It's kind of funny because I've been playing Cyberpunk, and when you compare the crowds, the way people move in scenes, it's really stark to compare, because what happens is in Cyberpunk, they have sort of a template of what people are doing. Right. And it's pretty much the same. A couple of people are doing 1 or 2 other things. But then you look at GTA, like just in some of the scenes in the trailer, everybody's got their cadence. They're, one guy's going crazy over there, and then it's almost.
I'm excited to see it, man. I just their ability to animate is beyond belief.
Yeah, it's insane.
That's what Absy and I were talking about. Is like, because he likes lighting, and so do I. Where we're like, lighting's probably more important maybe than res for us, or effects, depending on what res. But the one thing we both came out with is I saw the hacked trailer. I don't know if you guys saw it, but it came out. It was it was somebody stole it, and it had the Bitcoin thing. I was seeing it in Twitter this big, and 3 different parts I thought were real and that they were footage because I couldn't see all the screen. And so I was like, oh, that's interesting. I've never seen GTA do that. And then I saw the real one and was like, that's their animation team at work. Like they totally sold me. Because I was, I was sitting back. I didn't blow it up because I had the Bitcoin thing in the center, and I was like, okay, whatever. Look, but that's cool. What they're, and then when you see it in game, and you're like, damn, their animation team is just insane. They know how to nail animations. Even the girl spinning around, who everybody thinks is Lucy, she looks like her. She spins around and
the blonde one with the blonde hair.
When I was sitting back, I thought that was real because I was just sitting back seeing this little tiny, I have a big screen, but I'm far away from it. And I was like, oh, they put a real person in there. That's weird. And then I never really looked too closely until I saw it, they released early. They had to, which sucks. But yeah, it was interesting, man. Can't wait to see it.
It's going to be insane.
that'll be it for us. Everybody in chat, thank you very much for sticking around for our extended Avatar preview, is what it turned out to be. But no, seriously, the Game Awards, awesome trailers showing up. Thanks to these guys for sticking through for 3 hours and 25 minutes, only 5 minutes less than the Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 campaign. They're a meme now, to the point of where it's just like, here we go. Oh, $5 super chat. Last one. Have you touched on No Rest for the Wicked? Best looking title.
No.
Oh, we didn't mention it.
We did skip that.
I don't even know what that one is. No Rest for the Wicked.
So that one was like the stylized looking one, and it was from the creators of Ori.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, it did look good. In fact, I believe it's the only one we
The art style to me looked a lot like Trine. It really reminded me of Trine. Okay. And then gameplay wise, it looked somewhat like Torchlight, I guess.
That's exactly what that is. 100%. 100%. It did. It looked good. To me, it wasn't that high, but I definitely thought some of the scenes, it looked better and better as it went on in their trailer. And those guys know what they're doing. Right?
Yeah.
Like, I firmly believe I can trust those guys to deliver a good game. So I'm just going to wait till that one comes out.
The announcement that mystified me, though, was Brothers Tale of Two Sons remake.
Yeah, the remake.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I liked that game. I liked it.
Yeah, and I don't understand. I mean, I guess it's just one of those remakes where I don't understand what is the need for the change here. I think Silver, it's like so these are the guys that did yes.
A Way Out, and what's the other one?
No Escape or whatever it's called. A Way Out.
There's A Way Out.
It Takes Two.
Yeah. So I think after the success they've seen, they want to re-release this one to get more people to play it, because
I see.
It didn't get much boom, this game. It was much more on the low. So I think a lot of people didn't even know it existed. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think you could do that on the cheaper with like a remaster or something, potentially with a re-release in that vein. I don't know. It
was just a weird one to see. Yeah. And I think we're going to see that as games get not easier to make, but we start to see engines where iteration's easier. Maybe somebody looks at a remake for an older game that they're like, well, like remaking this and fixing controls or fixing little things that we didn't like maybe doesn't cost as much. And there's people who did, as Johnny said, track their last two games, which have been pretty phenomenal successes, and are let's throw this in there.
It looked good, but honestly, I think the original still looks good. It still lives on in its art style. Like, the art style holds up.
But can you play it on the PS5 and the Xbox Series X? Because I'm just wondering if maybe it's a platform issue where they're just like, let's move this on.
Yeah, maybe that's it.
It might be. It's also, let's be honest, guys, it's harder to sell an older game or older looking, even if it still looks okay, right?
Oh, yeah.
I think if you have a fresh coat of paint, it's much easier to sell to a fresh public, to a new public, especially like young people.
Looks matter.
Looks matter.
Yeah, they do. Man, looks matter, despite what your mom said. Anybody in chat, if your mom said you were a handsome little tyke, you can't trust her, man. All our moms said that, right? If you had a good mom, she said that. Now that I think about it, there is a chance.
And yet people are playing Dwarf Fortress.
Yeah, true. People are still, or Project Zombioid, which I love. Project Zomboid. But that is true. Anyway, that'll be it for us. Thank you, everybody. We absolutely appreciate you sticking around and watching the videos. You'll see some previews and probably a video from me next week, depending on an animal issue I have trying to take care of one of my pups. But I think I will be able to squeeze one in. Peace out and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Yeah.